Hello, and welcome to episode 17 of Trek Prime. This is an odd numbered episode, but this is not going to be an odd numbered subject. I've been toying around with Jeff for many weeks now about doing podcast on TOS, original Star Trek series, and the third season. And it took an interesting turn and broadened out. And I'll let Jeff take over for where he decided to go with that idea.
Yeah, I thought, it would be nice to just review each season, just talk about how, we felt the series was and what our favorite episodes were, and just, how, because, I don't know if many people realize it, but each season seemed to have its own unique look to it. It's like there was a different feel to each season.
You brought that out when we started talking about
Yeah.
this concept, and we were going to do them separately each season.
Yeah.
But we decided to do them kind of as a season as a character. Is that what the whole thing was?
Well, no, just to, kind of comparative, how it developed. Yeah, how it developed and stuff into season 3.
So we decided we weren't going to do the pilots because they have a character all their own, and they're pilots, and they're not
kind of, they're kind of standing
the seasons, but they're not, So anyway, so let's start out, and we're going to do them in production order, not, air date order, not production order.
Yeah, I'm going to start with season 1.
Okay, because like I said, they're done in a certain order of production, and they're done in order of where they aired. So this is easier to do the aired, I think.
Yeah, we're not going to do individual episodes here. I'm just it's like an overall.
Yeah, that's right. We're just doing a flavor. Yeah. So season 1, you want to kind of get that started with your observations on that first season, 66, 67.
Yeah, it started in September 8th, 66, and there were 29 episodes, and it aired on 8:30 at night on Thursday nights, so. I don't know. That's a kind of an odd time. 8:30. We're used to watching stuff and it comes on at 9 o'clock, 10 o'clock.
Late the primetime lineup, isn't it?
Yeah. So I don't know what was on at 8 o'clock before Star Trek, but it ran just only a half an hour, maybe. I don't know. I couldn't find anything about that, but it was just seemed like an odd time period to put an hour show on. So. Overall that season, I remember the episodes when they started in that season, the first 5 right up to like Balance of Terror, they had this subdued feeling to it. The lighting was dark.
Yeah. I was going to mention that. I call that on my own, I call that the petroleum jelly season because especially the early part, like you mentioned, everything was very soft focus and the lights were subdued. It had an almost romantic look to it,
Yes, yeah.
It was almost, I don't know. I guess romantic. I mean, in the general sense, not in the, interpersonal sense, but that romantic vision of the future and everything being very dreamlike and a surreal aspect to it.
Yeah, and even the music that went along with it seemed kind of, low-keyed, romantic, kind of.
On a jokey thing, during that period, you'd sometimes see them attend cocktail parties, and you'd hear a version of the TOS theme song playing in the background, like. So that would give you this kind of relaxed, sort of space loungy kind of flavor to it.
Yeah. You wouldn't get the idea that it was so much science fiction as just getting a snapshot of life in the future. You know what I'm saying? Like you're just seeing people in the future. It's not like it's so much talking about technobabble or anything like that. It's just people, talking with each other, going over his history or something together. Right. It just seemed more like people, just being people in the future. And there wasn't like a whole lot of what I call like space peril where the ship was in danger or something like that, or lives were at stake.
There were moments of that.
Yeah.
The focus of it would tend to be more on interpersonal situations. Can I mention an episode that actually focused right what we're talking about?
Yeah, sure.
You mentioned it the other day, Balance of Terror. Now, obviously, there's an issue with the Romulans, and they haven't encountered each other for almost a century or something.
100 years, yeah.
Yeah, and I suppose if you want to get technical about history, that's where the Enterprise timeline can get a little weird, but that's the whole other story. But the point is that story could have been basically your epic ship against ship battle.
Yeah.
But that didn't quite happen. You had the Romulan commander on this apparently very tiny ship from what I can see. It didn't look very big.
Yeah. Like a closet for a bridge.
Right. And like I said, they're kind of on patrol. Like you talk about the Bird of Preys being just sent out with big motherships and they're not warp powered, that the theory had. And he's yearning for the stars of home and is kind of reluctant but knows he has to do this mission. Kirk is dealing with a crew member whose family were in the Romulan War, and he's got very anti-Romulan sentiments when they see them. You know, they're Vulcanoid, and he starts thinking Spock might be a traitor or whatever.
Yeah.
And then there are two new crew members on the ship who have gotten married, and I believe his name was Tomlinson.
Yep.
And he dies in the end. So you deal with more interpersonal issues of the crew in that, rather than let's blow the ship up or whatever. You know, it's more about how the battle with the Romulans is affecting the people on the two ships.
Yeah.
You know, and the Romulans and I think that was the flavor of season 1. I mean, wouldn't you say that kind of with action, kind of this interpersonal?
Yeah, I mean, that was like one of my favorite ones because it dealt more with how people worked in a time of war or something like that, that it's not always cut and dry. It's not always, we got to get the bad guy. It's, you know, like you said, the Romulan commander was like war weary. You know, he was sick of the fighting.
Right. He wanted to go home and do whatever, but he had this assignment and they're dealing with it. And these newly married crew members are facing a risk. Yeah. Which ends up very bad for them in the end.
Yeah.
And like I said, you know, Star Trek isn't big on this, but that did not have a particularly happy ending.
No, it didn't. No.
So, you know, that was one of those, you know, but it was kind of like, you know, let's just avoid fighting. You know, that was basically the vibe of that this is the human consequence of what happens. Yeah. That you know, lives get cut short and ruined. So that was a good thing that, you know, that did, because it showed you the risks, the bigotry, the love lost, the battle lost, just, you know, that it isn't all glory. Yep. So that was a good one. I just wanted to mention that in that flavor. One thing I wanted to mention about season 1 too, I noticed as I got into it, and I'm gonna go into the list of episodes to think about approximately when it might have changed.
For me, I think it was right after that episode. The episode seemed to gather more momentum and more energy, more action.
Next episode up was Shore Leave, which is about amusement park planet. Yeah. Where whatever you think basically gets manufactured and created for you. And that episode had a different look. It was crisp, very clear, very concise looking. It didn't have that low light. It was all very bright, outdoor, on location, I think. I don't know where they did that, but they had a location. Didn't they have a location?
They were on location somewhere. I don't know where, but it helped with the overall look of the episode.
It was very sunshiny in that.
Yeah. I mean, because you know, you can tell when they're doing you know, on a set that's made up. I mean, it just feels claustrophobic.
Like, you know, bottle show.
So but when they actually took the time to go to an actual location and do it, it always looked impressive.
So you know, I think, would you say Shore Leave was basically where, because you know, obviously in this episode they're on this planet and strange things are happening. They don't get it at first, and they feel like they're in peril. And there's more fast-paced, fast cuts. Yeah. You see that's the beginning of Star Trek kind of getting a little more momentum and being less of this.
And I have to wonder, you know, if there was like complaints about the series, you know, up to that point being too romanticized, you know, or too subdued like that, you know, because, you know, you ever get the feeling when you're watching the first few episodes of that season that it's always nighttime? You know,
because you know the light is so dull, and there's this kind of
I remember Kirk said at one point in that season that, you know, they try to match the conditions of night and day as closely as possible with the ship.
Yes, and that's. Can I mention another episode here actually, because that actually comes, I think a bit later in the season. I'm not sure. Let me look. I believe the episode you're talking about is,
Conscience of the King.
Conscience of the King. I'm trying to see where that is. Yep, that's before Balance of Terror. Just before Balance of Terror. We're in the same zone, aren't we? Here. That's in Balance of Terror. So anyway, but that episode, I always like that one because, boy, you know, that doesn't have a happy ending either at all, does it?
No.
Not at all. Lenore Caridian is this daughter of this man who Kirk suspects of being this mass murderer of this colony, and the whole episode is basically set in this kind of Shakespearean Hamlet-like dirgy look. And there's a scene where Kirk is in with this young woman in I don't know who it is. She looks like James Mansfield to me. I forget her name.
Yeah.
She wasn't James, but she looks like Jane Mansfield. It just anyway, they were in the. I think wasn't that the shuttle bay they were in, or
yeah, near the observation section.
Like it was very dark in there, and he said that thing about we try to replicate the night and day look.
Yeah, that's right.
And all the first episodes seemed like they were kind of like
doing that. Yeah.
Yeah, they were kind of like it was all like a late night party dinner thing. I don't know what you call it, but it had that, and they were playing, I believe, that kind of, the very subdued music in the background. It was what did Harv Bennett call that?
I mean, like what was it? The Salt Creature episode there. I can't remember the name of it, but
the first one, the first aired episode, Man Trap.
Yeah, Man Trap. I mean, if you watch that whole thing, it seems like almost like a Halloween horror thing in a way, because it's all dark.
Well, yeah, if you go into Crater's house, there's hardly any light in it.
Yeah, I know it.
You see light on the characters. It's dark.
The bridge of the Enterprise is very dark.
The bridge is dark. You go into Kirk's quarters, or was it Bones' quarters, where they met, found out that she was the Nancy was the Salt Creature, and it's dark in there.
Yeah.
It's always like they take place at night or on the night shift or whatever.
Yeah, it's almost like Nicholas Meyer directed that one or something,
Because like the bridge is dark.
Yeah. I mean, because everything is like very dimly lit, and they had this in the first season they used that background. It looks like a rainbow color, like green and purple and all that. Remember how they used to light the walls in that first season?
Yeah, they had that like weird colored stuff floating around in the like a reflection. It was strange.
Yeah, they stopped doing that in the later seasons.
Almost like a liquid light. Yeah, and like I said, that was the Vaseline thing, where they would just like everything was very soft focus and literally light and colors, and it was just, I think they were trying to make it into kind of a big the word Harv Bennett used, space opera.
Yeah, there you go.
It had a space opera feel to it. Harv Bennett actually called it a space opera.
Yeah.
It was very theatrical and had this, where with Shore Leave it became a different kind of show. Yeah. Now, so we have season 1 starts out with that romantic space opera look with the rainbow things on the wall and the soft focus and everything being kind of dimly lit. Where in the later part of the season, you started to see a brighter bridge. Yeah. The quarters were much better lit. You started to see more outdoor locations.
Yeah.
Some mechanics came into the show, which would define it later. Like, we talked about this away team missions.
Yeah.
Especially if you're being into a set planet. Not so much if they went on location. But if you've been into a planet that was on a set, you'd often see this matte painting in the background, and you'd hear a combination of the transporter effect, loop,
and wind chimes.
With every alien planet. Pretty much.
There's crystals floating in the air. They just...
bells and bells and bells.
I never understood that. Why they had.
It was just a mechanic they had for the set planets. There were like these big sets they built.
Yeah.
Rather than locations where you didn't hear wind. Well, didn't Shore Leave have wind chimes?
Shore Leave, yes, they did. And you could hear it was like the wind chimes.
Those were the loud ones, weren't they?
Yeah, and they also amplified the sound of wind, like it was. You hear, like the wind.
Maybe the whole idea was that was supposed to indicate a dream state.
Yeah, I guess. I mean,
when you have characters like Ruth show up, or whatever, these characters being created for them, you hear ding, 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 wind chimes in the background. Not the transporter effect, but they combine them in different episodes.
Yeah, because they always alternated it, in that season, because I think was it Alternative Factor?
Lazarus or
yeah. And I think they just used the wind and the transporter effect a little bit on that for the planet surface.
Okay. Well, here's a question I have for you.
Okay.
Your favorite episodes of season 1, since we've kind of gotten the dual evolving flavors of this season. We talked about Balance of Terror, Shore Leave, Conjurers of the King.
Yeah. So my favorite ones were Space Seed, City, The Edge of Forever, Arena. Galileo 7,
Galileo 7, I don't hear that one come up a lot. I've only seen that twice, believe it or not.
The reason why I like it is if you look at the remastered version of it on Netflix, I get it on Netflix. there's a lot of scenes added into that we don't get to see because of commercial breaks. They cut more into the episode because they got to put in more commercials when you see it in later years. There's some interesting scenes between Spock and the crew where there was a lot of friction there, a lot of arguing and stuff like that. And it gives more of an impression that, Spock was really having a hard time interacting with humans and his first command, basically on the surface. And, it gives you a different feel this time when you watch Galileo 7 than before, because like I said before, they butchered those episodes in the 80s here when they would, when that was syndication. I mean, they cut that all to hell.
Yeah, when I remember watching TOS in 91 when I got the DVD, because I have that Galileo 7 on DVD. It's not the remastered version, but it's the full.
Yeah.
Episode. The thing about it is I didn't see Galileo 7 during syndication for some reason. I always missed it. And that again is another claustrophobic kind of bottle-y oriented episode, because you're either in a shuttlecraft or you're in a... And there is a monster in that, like an alien monster.
Like a giant Sasquatch. That throws these 9-foot spears, So,
like I said, it's again, I think was that when they were still calling Spock a Vulcanian, or they kind of passed that at that point?
Yeah, and I think they were still calling him a second officer. And, they I don't know why they did that, because his role was first officer, science officer. But when he would record a log entry, he would say log recorded by second officer Spock. I don't... Yeah,
we're building the universe, I mean,
yeah.
Like you mentioned in TOS, they were going. I mean, the motion picture, they were still going into this thing about screens and all that kind of business. So they still have their little in-universe thing.
You would think that the rank system they had figured out, especially with Gene behind it, because he was in the military.
And Starfleet wasn't always a thing. I mean, I remember they had Space Central at one point. The United States Space Probe Agency. They actually abbreviated it to USPA at one point.
Yeah.
So they were kind of just playing around with names until the United Federation of Planets. So that was the embryonic era. Arena, one of the first, that and Spacey, one of the first ones I ever saw. And there's an interesting story you mentioned about William Shatner in Arena that affected him his whole life. I'll let you go.
Yeah, at the beginning of it, when they first beamed down to the planet, and they find out that the station was all blown up and everything. Cestus 3. And then all of a sudden, the Gorn start throwing, rockets over there, and you hear them whistling and blowing up.
Weapons that were blowing up.
And Shatner, for some reason, insisted on doing these scenes himself. He didn't want a stunt double doing it. And so he's out there on location, and he's dodging, squibs, I guess, blowing up in the ground. And the sound of these things blowing up had hurt his ear so much that he ended up with tinnitus the whole rest of his life. He still deals with that to this day. And that's where he got it from, was in that episode where they were filming it, and it just hurt his eardrum, I guess, so bad that that's what he's doing, So, he learned a lesson why we have stunt doubles, Anyway,
and by the way, Mr. Shatner, we're going to get back to you in a minute, so. We'll just, what was the other one you mentioned? The Galileo 7 and Space Seed. We talk a lot about Space Seed just in general, and we actually talked about it earlier when we were testing out a Skype mechanic. Space Seed, I actually saw the Wrath of Khan first.
Yeah.
But I knew it was based on an episode, so a friend of mine, and I have a personal story about Space Seed I wanted to share with you. That was the time I caught my first cold.
Oh.
And I was, at the time, my father was going to a chiropractor for issues he had with his back. And he was a big Star Trek fan. And he had one of those VCR setups.
Yep.
Where you could dub off a dub. And I said, and he had all the Star Treks, and they were those VHSs from the 80s,
Yep.
They had the transporter effect on the front, whatever. And he said, he said, do you want any Star Trek episodes I could episode? Space Seed, I wanted to see that one.
Yeah.
So I'm sitting there watching this for the first time with a cold in bed, a dub of a VHS here. So, which I kept. I kept my VHS tape of that because that's kind of a special one. There's another Star Trek episode on. We'll get into a little bit later, but yeah. So I remember that. And the interesting thing about that is that that's one place where Star Trek tried to predict a fairly immediate future. The 1990s, and what happened is that because as far as we know, the 1990s didn't quite go that way.
Yeah.
they had to release a book later through Pocket Books explaining why we didn't know.
Yeah, they kind of reached quite a bit in,
Which
into
shows you that Star Trek is supposed to be our future.
Yeah,
It was not supposed to be some little fictional future. It's supposed to be our future. So.
I'm just glad they didn't make that book canon, because they were incorporating other TV shows into that. Like The Equalizer, because the guy that played Gary Seven was in that, and he had something to do with Khan. It was just, I don't know. It was kind of too far fetched for me. I couldn't.
So, like I said, Space Seed, I just see what it is, and I mean, I don't even know what you.
Yeah.
I have my favorite moments in that, and I have some awkward moments in that. One of my favorite moments in it is a very interesting scene where I don't know why it happened. They gave Khan a Starfleet uniform in the middle of the episode.
Yeah, they did. Well, after they find out who he is, they give him a red shirt.
Right. Red shirt. Now that I think about it, they give Khan a red shirt. I'm sorry, you mentioned the red shirt. I thought, oh dear, he didn't die in the end.
He's the only guy, I guess, that could survive with a red shirt. Star Trek
2, a delayed red shirt issue. Anyway, they did give him the red shirt. They didn't give him a command shirt. They gave him the red shirt.
Yeah.
Because the thing is, you see pictures of Khan in the past, he always had that red kind of uniform on.
Yeah, that more.
Which was Star Trek's, was always their future uniform. Other TOS's, past, every Star Trek character from the 21st century had this, like, either orange or red outfit with a little root beer barrel brooch.
Yeah.
You know what I'm talking about? All the 21st century TOS characters wore that outfit.
Yeah.
Khan had one, Zephyr Cochrane had one, Colonel Green had one.
Yeah.
We'll get to them later. But yeah, so Spacey, there's this moment where they're sitting, he in the red shirt, and he's telling Kirk that, well, there's been technological advances, but humanity is still inferior, and how little humanity itself has changed. And, even though Khan is being Khan and smug and arrogant as you can be, the fact of the matter is that it's interesting to see a 20th century perception that, humanity is more than technological advances.
Yeah.
And I always found that scene really interesting. Another thing that I find interesting and also kind of funny is that Khan basically goes around doing some sort of Tai Chi before he starts, I call it Khan Chi.
Yeah, this deep breathing, and he does all this stuff.
They play little Spock's music, that Spock theme has like a kind of reverby thing, and Khan would be doing all the stretching, and then he'd be able to open doors that were So, and they were all doing it on the ship. So obviously, these characters were not these superheroes. They had to actually exercise their genetically perfect bodies to do all this stuff. So it kind of gave them humanity and something a little more.
I figured it was because they had been asleep for so long that it took them a while for their bodies to wake up. I mean, remember when he was back on his ship and they were all lined up and they were doing
That's what I was saying. They were all doing that stuff.
Yeah. They were trying to wake themselves up, I think, and that's what that was all about, why they were doing it. And I think when Khan, when he was kind of locked in his quarters and he wanted to get out, he had to summon all this energy, and he had to kind of do that all again just to get that door open so he could come out there and sock that guy.
It was interesting drama to have that done. Now, the awkward scene, we talked about it earlier, is a stunt double scene at the end. Khan and Kirk fighting and engineering. And, they
call it fighting. I call it wrestling. I mean, it was like,
I guess because it was like a ring, and they were all kind of, just kind of just, it was all kind of staged and choreographed. You can kind of get that impression.
Yeah.
And, in the end, Kirk pulls out this thing. It looks like a Nerf bat from one of the engineering, and there are tons of them in there, and they seem to have no really logical purpose. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know what it.
They look like gray, cheap plastic, and this genetically perfect Khan, he's beating him up with it very gently, and Ricardo has to overact it to make it look like he's really hurt.
Yeah.
Because it looks like he's like batting with a deck of cards, and he's like.
I mean, you're talking about a guy that took a phaser and bent it. And yet he ain't got enough strength to stand up to a pipe that, where I guess to be in a hit on him. I mean, he couldn't have just grabbed it or something and took it out of.
Kirk pulls that with no effort. It's like a little plasticky thing.
Yeah, I mean, he was coming right at him. I mean, that should have been an easy grab, but I don't know. I mean, it was just, they had to hurry up because the clock was ticking on it and the ship was going to blow up into a supernova there, I guess.
Yeah, so that was a little weird thing, but yeah. That's definitely a favorite episode of mine because, like I said, it gives us a glimpse into something that's their past is somehow our future.
Yeah.
It's an odd thing. And, there were looks that Shatner and Ricardo Montalban exchanged at that dinner that almost write dialogue is not in the script. And even he's like, "Oh, you're an excellent tactician. You're letting your second in command attack while you're looking for weakness from me."
Yeah.
And he's like, "Oh, well, this is a social occasion. Why are you being so militaristic?" And this is this conversation that happens, and it's one of those classic Star Trek moments. And and to be honest with you, Wrath of Khan is very good, and I know a lot of people love that movie. I find Khan much more interesting in Space Seed because you get to see his character more.
Yeah.
Basically, in Space Seed, in Wrath of Khan, he just wants to go out and kill Kirk.
Yeah, he's
or like, hurt him or enact vengeance.
Yeah, he's obsessed.
Right. Where in Space Seed, you actually have a character, a person with a personality and observations.
Yeah.
And no, by the way, just in case you mentioned Star Trek 2, Chekhov is not a character in Space Seed. Thank you very much. Yeah, well, that's Wrath of Khan, but we'll get into that another time. But if you all know what I'm talking about. So anyway, my favorite episodes of the first season, Space Seed, we can put them on my list. As I mentioned, one of my favorites was actually Conscience of the King. Another favorite of mine, which I love because could be kind of apropos. We've talked about this, was The Taste of Armageddon. This planet that fights war with computers, and they are actually not above endangering the Enterprise for the sake of maintaining this non-conflict, and they just throw people in death chambers, basically.
Yeah.
And one thing I noticed about that, looking back at it, is they name everybody in their planet numerically.
Yeah.
Almost like they become statistics. And I haven't picked that up before, but they had a character named Mia 3.
Yeah.
The leader was named Anon 7. Was that kind of implying that they weren't worthy of names anymore? They just become statistics who'd be thrown in death chambers and they get attacked?
It's either that or there was cloning going on. I don't know. I mean, when at the first time when you watch it, I mean, I didn't know anything about cloning then, but I never really picked up on the numbers. But it just seemed, later on in life, I was like, I kind of wonder, why do they give themselves numbers for a last name or something? And then, when you talk about cloning later on, and you figure remember Spock 2, they animated,
they have the clones. They're like, the savior of the galaxy, Spock 2.
Yeah. So I mean, I figure that was what was going on.
That's
there.
Another Star Trek series.
So in a way, they kind of if they were cloning, then they'd be cheating because you'd be dead, but then you come back.
Yeah, that would have made the whole computer war kind of irrelevant. Like, so we'll just throw you in a death chamber. Oh, here's Mia 4. I mean, it would have made it almost like a more operatic if they'd done that and less serious stake. Whereas I think the whole idea is the idea was that instead of having family names, they use numbers because if somebody died in a chamber, it's easier to name the next child Mia 4 or whatever.
Yeah, maybe.
They just made it was about the war is hell thing, basically. That was the whole idea of that. But one scene has nothing to do. One thing I noticed about early TOS, especially, they always make ambassadors who are intended to be peacemakers not always beloved by the crew.
Yeah, they're throwing their weight around on the bridge and they're trying to take over, and it's like, you people sit down and shut up. This is a Starfleet vessel here, and there's a captain.
Right, there's always this conflict. And Starfleet's the military, and these are peacemakers, and they're kind of like, I'm not into them,
Yeah, I mean, he's got his mission to do when he gets there. In the meantime, there's only one captain on that ship.
And Galileo 7 had that, but he was more just straight pompous. The guy in Taste of Armageddon, his name was Ambassador Fox. He was extremely petulant.
Oh, yeah.
And snippety, all while wearing a costume that resembled some sort of space frog.
Yeah, this thing with the collar that was like way out here and all around his neck. I mean, what the hell?
Like an amphibian,
It was a strange costume.
I'm sitting here looking at this guy, and he's sitting here saying that, well, I have seniority here, and he looks like he's about to kiss a princess on the cheek. Or something. He looks like a frog prince, and it's like I can't imagine Ambassador of the Future wearing this giant necked frog thing.
I mean, the one scene I liked in that episode was the confrontation between Scotty and him. This, I'm not dropping the shields no matter what you say, and they had that.
Right, that shows you that dynamic.
I mean, because when I first saw that, I wanted to slap the shit out of that guy there. Just get that.
Fox. Yeah, because he was just being absolutely pompous in that.
Yeah.
And then when he goes out of that planet, he's like, well, I'm going to beam down there. And then they want to make him a war statistic. And he's like, oh, boy, I've been foolish.
Yeah, and it's like, see, that's why Scotty wasn't going to drop the shield fool, because they were, they were tricking.
Scotty's actually, even though Scotty wasn't sure, because Anon-7 had copied Kirk's voice, and Scotty's like, this isn't quite right. There's something not quite right about it. And the computer
can't trust him.
It was an imitation. So, and the ambassador's like, well, I know my thing. I'm going to go down there, and he ends up almost becoming a statistic.
Yeah.
And then they have to go down there and rescue him.
Yeah.
And then he decides to stay behind to help them negotiate with this Vendikar.
Yeah.
After he's been a total pompous jerk the whole first part of the series. He's like, well, I've never been a soldier, but I'm willing to learn, and I'll stay down here and I'll help you in your conflict, and I'm not gonna go there and badger you right and left like I did these other people,
Yeah, really, yeah.
So, so basically that was what that was. Another one that, and this is a strange one because the episode is kind of dark, but it kind of goes in with today's universe a little bit, with everything being dystopian. And it was called Miri. And basically what it was, they beamed down to this planet. There was an Earth-like copy, but of course they created this attempt to prolong their lives, which killed everybody but the children, who become these kind of demonic, horrific, cannibal-type creatures called grups when they reach puberty.
Yeah.
And, it shows the crew, I believe that's one of the final appearances of Yeoman Rand. It shows the crew unstable in a high-risk situation. And there's a very odd, I don't know how you define it, relationship between Kirk and the character of Miri, who's played by Kim Darby. And I was never sure if it was a father-daughter, if it was a romantic thing. I didn't know. It would have seemed weird if it was romantic because she was a teenager and Kirk wasn't, but I'm just saying it. It was an interesting episode. Of course, I want to mention this because now that I think about it, of course, in the end, I understand Kirk's supposed to be, irrational from this disease they're starting to get on this planet. Yeah. But he's talking to the kids and he's explaining to them how if they don't trust them, they're going to die like everybody else on the planet did.
Yeah.
In that scene, now that I think about it, is the beginning of a mechanic we'll see a lot more in Shatner later. And I just remember this. Because the whole thing is that their whole society was based on just being permanently children. Everything was a game, if you've seen that episode.
Yeah. Everything
was a game. Everything was just a big joke. It was kind of like a Stephen King parable almost.
Yeah, that's pretty good, yeah.
But, there's a scene in there where they're all making a bunch of noises. And then Shatner starts in with this, no, blah, blah, blah! And that's like an early harbinger of what we're going to see from him a little later. Now, we can justify by saying, well, he's got this disease, but still, no, blah, blah, blah!
Yeah, it does come off a little bit odd, but,
like I said, we can get a little slide because he's supposed to be going through a messed up thing. But again, that little bit over, but we'll get into that a little bit later. Because that's a preview of coming attractions. We'll get into that later. So that was overall, it was a good episode. I just remember that little Shatner moment. Yeah. But overall, it's an interesting episode. We don't really know what happens to these people. They're given the treatment, and they're even like, we just left them alone like that.
Yeah,
and we don't really know what happened. We're hoping that they took the treatment and they left sociologists down there to kind of help them out.
Yeah.
I have a lot of favorites from season 1, actually. One episode I actually enjoyed a lot was Esquire of Gothos, because you see this character who seems ridiculous and spoofed, and all powerful, but at the same time, he has fallibilities. He has to use a machine to create all his illusions, and of course, he turns out to be a child of his race.
Yeah.
I mean, I guess we should have figured that out the minute he was like, "You broke my sword." You know, I mean.
Yeah. I mean, I wonder if they're related to the Organians, because they were light too at the end. Remember?
You know, it's funny to mention that because people always said that character was somehow Q, and I always thought maybe the Organians make more sense.
Yeah, because the parents were like just blobs of light, you know.
Right, and they acted a little more. I'm trying to think of the word. A little more, a little more elegant and
yeah, responsible, mature.
And the Organians seemed to be that kind of character.
Yeah.
Where the Q were a little more pompous and snide.
Yeah, they kind of, they didn't take things that serious. Like,
yeah, they thought, oh, we're in an ant colony. We're just playing with them like fiddle faddles. And, you know, where the Organians were like, well, we know we're superior to you, but we'll handle you with some level of decorum and respect. And that's the impression. So maybe they were Organians or an offshoot of that species. And Tremaine was just an underling who was just learning to make planets. Or
a kid, yeah. They were raising a kid, basically.
Yeah, because remember, they're telling him if he doesn't do the right thing, they can't let him make any more planets like he did with Kirk and them. So it's
can't have any more supernovas.
Right. Well, yeah, you know, the kind of discipline you'd have to have for an omnipotent kid. You know, you don't take care of your pets. No making planets today. You know, that sort of thing. So that was an interesting episode with an interesting little kind of comic twist, I guess you could say. Another favorite.
They also had a character that they used. You know, in a few episodes, DeSalle. You know, remember him?
DeSalle, yes, he was a part of that away mission in Gothos.
Yeah.
One of those first season characters you saw once in a while, and they just didn't use him after that.
Yeah, I was wondering if they were if they were trying to do something with him, but then it just didn't fall through. Maybe the actor decided he didn't want to stay.
Could have been Chekhov.
Yeah, I don't know.
He could have been that character. He could have stayed there and been that Chekhov character.
Yeah.
But, you know, everybody has their little attempts to try to bring people in, and then they don't work out. And,
yeah. I don't know. I kind of liked him, DeSalle. I mean,
he
had a gold shirt in that episode.
Yeah, which means he wasn't going to get killed. So.
Yeah. But they gave him a red shirt in season 2 when we get to that, where he was into that, wearing that shirt.
That's why we didn't see him again.
Yeah, and then that's when, but.
Like I said, the red shirt thing is a trope in Star Trek that is actually, unfortunately, often very true. So I'm just saying it's become a trope, but there's some tropes there for a reason. But anyway, and City on the Edge of Forever, we didn't talk about that. Another mutual thing, we both like that episode.
Do you want to beat that to a book?
We've already had the Harlan Ellison conversation, so I don't think you need to go into that.
Yeah.
This is not, let's just say, this is not exactly what he wrote. If you want to see what he wrote, it's available online. And if you do, you can probably see why it's better they did what they did with it.
Yeah.
The basis of the story is still good, you know. In the story, Bones gets an accidental overdose of a drug that kind of makes him lose it, and he ends up going through this time portal and messing up history. And Kirk meets up with this love interest, this Edith Keeler, who cannot live, because if she does, she's going to unintentionally mess up history so the Nazis win the war and so on and so forth. Yeah. And it's because, you know, one thing I wanted to mention, there's all this stuff about Kirk being this Don Juan of space, when in actuality, as far as I could see, he only, in TOS, only actually fell in love with one character, and that was Edith Keeler. I mean, actual love.
Well, except for, you know, in the 3rd season there, I guess when he Miramani, you know, we actually.
No, but that was Kirok, though.
Yeah, but he still cared about her even after he got his memory back, and he was going to have a baby with her and everything.
Yeah, I guess, but like I said, I always consider Kirok kind of a half Kirk. I don't know. I guess you could say that, but Edith Keeler was like one of the characters he actually was in love with, because, you know, he kissed a lot of women, but I wouldn't call it love.
Yeah.
But Edith Keeler was the one first female character in the first season that he actually had there was that one in season 3, but we're in season 1 still, so let's just stay in that world right now, because season 3 we're going to get into later, and we got season 2 to go through. So that's season 1 is my favorite. Oh, another episode I enjoy from is it season 1? Yes, right before Space Seed. It's a surreal episode in a way, but again, it's a computer issue. with this planet that's a planet-sized cult. It's called Return of the Archons.
Yep.
Where this computer controls the planet, and they all think it's like a god figure. And they're all basically going around like they're in a cult. Except one character in there somehow sounds like they may be from Maine and or Canada. I don't know if you remember this one. It always struck me weird because they're on an alien planet. I'm trying to remember the name of that planet. It wasn't, the Archon was the name of the ship, but I'm trying to remember the name of the planet they were on in that episode with Landru. They get approached by some random guy on the street who goes up to them, and they don't even, because Sulu comes on the ship and he's all into this Landru thing, and he's been absorbed, and this guy comes up and tells Kirk, "Oh, come for the festival, eh?"
Yeah.
Where did that come from?
Yeah.
That was a weird thing. This is an alien planet. This could be some guy I know in the coast. You know? That was an odd thing to come out of in Star Trek. That phrase. You know? Yeah. But anyway, so I like that episode because it deals with this. It kind of is an indirect. I always thought it was an indirect thing on cults, like a directed society, and you know. Again, like with Miri, they have to send sociologists down in the end to kind of put the society back into a humanoid form. So, you know, in case you didn't notice with TOS with me, I always kind of go for the episodes that deal with human issues and things like that, and they have, you know, these moments of tension and these even moments that are kind of awkwardly funny and sometimes intentionally funny. To be honest, the expression that Shatner has when he's looking at this orgy of a festival happening outside is worth a few memes. He's like, because, you know, they talk about festival, it looks like there's this Roman orgy outside.
Yeah.
People grabbing each other, burning houses, and this guy comes out of building, festival! Then next morning, it's all, everything's towns, and they're all, we're going to run around and act like we're brainwashed again. It's this bizarre.
Why wasn't the town all messed up when they first got there? I mean, because, I mean, you know,
well, I mean, we don't know
do
how
this
many
every day.
they actually had per year. Was it every day? Was it every week?
Well, I guess we assume it's every day. I don't know. I mean, it's just
unless the body, as they call it, cleaned up the mess magically or something. Like, okay, we had festival, let's just wing it all up or something, you know.
Did like $10,000 worth of property damage or
yeah, I mean, I don't know what. They had the Red Hour. I don't know if the festival happened every day.
Yeah.
Or every week.
I noticed they added a scene when they do the remaster of that town that they're in from the, you know, up in sky, you know, looking down on it. It's not very big. It's very tiny. Just a little, like, there's just this one road that goes down the middle, and it's just, there's nothing to it, you know, and it's like, you know, it's kind of weird, you know.
Yeah, I don't know. That episode has surreal quality, but I don't know. And again, it was one of the early ones I saw, too.
Yeah.
Probably around 89, 88. I would say around then. Around the time I saw, because they were running Star Trek a lot in those years. And when I saw it, it was one of those really truncated 80s syndicated versions. You know, you remember where they would just, like, cut. It was when ABI was running it. ABI up here. I don't remember. And then that giant ABI logo on the bottom. And then at the end, what they do is, I wanted to point this out, and this is not to say anything bad, but I noticed your screen kind of did it a couple times, what they would do in this episode. And when they went to commercial, they'd all of a sudden slow down a little bit, you know. I'm not, it's just
before they go to a commercial break.
Yeah, they called it video time compression. They used to do that a lot.
Yeah.
TOS, they kind of messed the scene, like cut fragments of seconds out, and they edited all this stuff out. It was just, you know, it was not the whole thing, but they cut down a 15-minute show down to like 43 minutes or something.
Yeah.
So like you said, when you watch it on Netflix or remaster, there's scenes you don't see.
Yeah, I mean, that's the best way now to watch it, because, you know, you're not going to see it if they put it on TV, you know, or, you know, just going to get, if you're lucky, a half an hour. But
I don't know how truncated well, I mean, now they have commercials everywhere, so I don't.
I know, it's just.
You know, I mean, I don't know how much.
Why don't they just put stickers all over your TV set when you get it? Like, it's got, you know, like, you know, Valvoline on there or something, like a race car thing. You know, when you buy a TV now, why don't they just?
Well, you know, I remember I wanted to mention this because I if any of you know the name of the show, or saw this when this happened. I was with years ago when I was living with somebody who had cable. They had the station Spike. Remember Spike?
Yeah.
It used to be called the New TBS or something, and they were supposedly all the action sci-fi kind of shows, and they were running Next Generation, DS9, and all that. Now, this was during the era where they would actually start putting ads in the middle of shows.
Yeah, I remember that.
And there was some stupid show. I don't even remember what it was. It was like they were hyping it really big at the time. It was like a comedy show, and there was this guy who was hosting it. And I was watching TNG one day, and during the middle of the episode, I forget when it was, I saw this guy on a bungee cord just leap through the middle of the screen.
He ruined the whole thing.
Back, and then he'd come in, and you'd see this logo for this guy's show. If any of you know remember the name of the show, they were really hyping it. It was only for like a minute.
Yeah.
But they were really hyping, and they had to interrupt Star Trek for this guy.
Yeah, so if you were recording the episode,
you'd get that.
You were going to get that in it, and that was I could see how that would have been.
But like you told me about up in Stillwater, they had that building, they had a trampoline inside it, and they had to jump around. Could you imagine if they just randomly shot video footage of people like that jumping on trampolines and put it in the middle of a TV show for just that's basically what it was like. It's like
if you'd have done that on a football game, the people would have hung you for that, you know.
Yeah, it's like the thing with Star Trek and professional sports.
Yeah,
that may be a blog I want to do. I know it's a rabbit hole, but I want to go down that rabbit hole. I have some things I need to exercise, and I have some funny things to say about that. So anyway, but with TOS, I think we are on season 1 now because I want to get into 2.
Yeah. Okay. So season 2 that started in September 15th of '67. There were 26 episodes in that, and they came on 8:30 on Friday nights. They moved it up a night.
Now, we should add, and I think everybody knows this, that during the first season and second season, Star Trek was consistently in danger of being canceled. That was not. It was not like it ever had a safe spot. There was always this concern about was it Nielsen's was the big thing at the time? The Nielsen ratings were a problem.
Yeah.
But that's a whole other story. But season 2 introduced a new character, Mr. Chekhov.
Yep.
I had to say the Conway. It sounded good.
Yep.
Anyway, so and he was intended to be initially a young British character, if I remember right.
Well, I remember seeing a special on TV, and Gene Roddenberry had explained where the character came from. I mean, he said he had read an article somewhere, a newspaper.
Oh, the story about Pravda and reading about.
They were saying, the Americans are at it again, or something there.
Now, to hear Star Trek writers later, they had said that Gene made it up for publicity. There was no Star Trek behind the Iron Curtain. So. Yeah. I don't know what's true, but that was Gene's story.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know how they would have got it. I mean, because I don't think they were broadcasting American shows.
But they wanted somebody who had the appeal that the monkeys would have, so he gave him like a Beatle haircut, and they made him.
Yeah, that was an awful haircut on him. It never looked right. I mean, it looked like a wig.
Later on, when Chekhov was on the show, he had kind of a regular haircut.
Yeah, I'm glad they got rid of that
floppy thing that they. A good example of this is Cat's Paw. He had this floppy, kind of. It wasn't even a bowl cut. It was like a low budget Beatle haircut. I guess that's the way to look.
And the funny thing about him is he looks young for his age. I mean, at that time, but he was very close in age to William Shatner. You know,
he was 30-something by then.
Yeah, I mean, he was almost. I mean, his age. I mean, you'd have to look it up. I don't know how old he is now.
But he was about like 20.
Yeah, I know. He looks really young. There's some people are like that. You know, like my girlfriend. She looks young for her age too. I mean, she's 41 and she looks like she's 20, 25 or something like that. You know, she's just don't age. You know.
Yeah, well, I mean, you know, I'm 38 and people say you don't even look like you're 28. You know, it's just it's weird how people are. And I mean, you have your own subjective view, but I mean, to me, I've known you for 20 years and I haven't seen much change. But you know.
I mean, Hollywood likes actors that are like that, though they don't age that much. You can use them,
So Chekhov was introduced, and it's funny looking at season 1 here. It looks like they is it me or do they produce episodes in a different order than they aired them? Because
yes, they do.
I always felt that Cat's Paw was shot earlier because Chekhov had that little messy looking haircut that didn't look right.
Right.
But Amok Time started out season. Now the feel of season 2, would you say that continued on basically from where season 1 ended up, where it was much more crisp and much more driven storylines?
Yeah, they got rid of a lot of like the background lighting where they would do these weird.
Right. So it kind of continued where season 1 left off, where it was more crisper and.
Yeah, and the quality of the film I think was a little better too. I mean, it just seemed like it was an improvement from what they were using before.
Yeah.
I don't know if it was a different camera they were using, a different lens. I don't know, but it just seemed different, in that way.
A lot of people think Star Trek TOS really reached its peak in the second year. That they really got things done right. The stories were at a very strong height. We pick out favorite stories. I mean, there's
the thing is, though, the actors themselves really nailed those characters early on in season 1. Because there was some subtle changes, like Spock not hollering as much on the bridge and stuff like that.
Yeah, I mean, after the first episodes or so.
Yeah. So, I mean, they were pretty good. I mean, because a lot of TV shows today, the actors really don't get their stride until like the second or third season, but they really hit it right off early on in the show. So
yeah, because if you look at TOS season 2, they're pretty much picking up right where they left off at the end of season 1, where the characters are really defined. They know each other pretty well. And even though it's centered around Bones and Spock and Kirk, most of the episodes, they really all have defined places. And with Chekhov there, you don't have that revolving door navigator syndrome you had in the first season.
Yeah.
So you just alluded that there was like 3 or 4 people that kind of came in and out of that position.
Yeah. The first episode I think that they aired was Amok Time, and I think that kind of set the tone for the overall season. Was that we're going to do a little more action here with this. We're still going to have that drama of people, but we're going to have these more movement.
To ask about this now that you mentioned Amok Time, Spock obviously became the breakout character of TOS. Would you say that season 2, the episodes, because that was a very Spock-oriented season, and I think that, do you think that the Spock heaviness of season 2 really gave this character resonance with people watching the show? Because Amok Time was a very Spock-centric episode. It gave you a lot of information about Vulcan and the Pumfar and different aspects of Vulcan culture. We saw Vulcan for the first time, not Vulcania, but Vulcan.
Yeah.
And we saw Spock basically in a
well, we kind of learned a little bit more about Vulcan through what Spock was going through,
right, because Vulcans have a Victorian attitude about sexuality. They like to talk about it, and it's very personal because it's emotional, and they think it's an animal instinct. And in the episode, I'm sorry, does this show have a rating system? I can only think of one word to describe Spock. Vulcans are sexually involved only every 7 years because of this Pumfar. That's all you need to know about how Spock is in this episode.
Yeah.
He's frustrated.
Yeah, I mean, and it's not like, he played it like a, how can I say, he could have really camped up that part of this episode, but Leonard Nimoy really pulled it off good, by maintaining the Vulcan
repressed character.
He still maintained that Vulcan control, but you could see that he was struggling with it. You could see his hands shaking, and his temper was.
Right, you really show the struggle of what this character was going through. I'm wondering, do you think that might have resonated with people? Just Leonard Nimoy's performance in this episode, because I think that Spock really came into his own in season 2 in a lot of ways. That you saw these different sides of him. So you would say season 2, again, the general feel would be this kind of more, let's get to the story, let's get to the people, let's get to the characters, let's get to the situation.
It's kind of like they finally figured out how we can learn about things and still have the enjoyment of having some action and drama.
Right, to get that TOS look where it was the TOS look to me is very intense, saturated, crisp.
Yeah.
Rather than that first season, little blingy lights everywhere.
And the music was even more dramatic in that season too. I mean, they had a lot more percussions and stuff in the background, with stuff and
the characters developed their little theme songs in terms of like I said, we talked way back about the famous Spock bass line.
Yeah, with the bass guitar, yeah.
That was always Spock's or the Vulcan theme in general.
Yeah.
Every time a Vulcan was being intrinsically logical, you'd hear that would be even before Supertramp, that was the original logical song,
Yeah.
Saying that, that was always the little Vulcan moment thing, and they added, I think that was season 2 that came in, right? That little bass line, so that was, we and not only that, but
I think we also learned about Christine Chapel's affection for him in that season too.
Right, well, we had a little bit of that in season 1, but in Nick of Time we had a little bit of that, but I think
was she on the ship in the episode Naked Time? Because I don't remember.
Yep, she was there because she got that. We're going to season 1 now.
Oh yeah, okay, yeah, she was. Now I remember. Yeah, okay, you're right. But we see, in that episode, we see her, worrying about Spock, and she tries to bring him some soup, and he throws it out the door, and you got more feel that she's really.
Like I said, this is an episode that's very dramatic and really very good. But I did want to add one thing, and I think we've talked about this, but I wanted to add this in. The little the little view screens in the quarters. Okay.
I'm gonna bring this up again.
Well, I am, because it's just part of Mug Time that always there was always a spit take for me, because in
the cardboard box
back in the Nintendo Labo.
Yeah.
But anyway, back in the first season, there was an episode called Enemy Within where Kirk was separated in 2 halves, a good and an evil half, and the evil half was being identified. Oh, he can be seen by the scars in his face. And he's going around the quarters breaking things, including one of those things. Yeah. And you're like, oh, Captain Kirk! And he throws one of them on the ground, and it falls off, and you hear a burst like glass, and there's sparks coming. Like, I think like it's a device,
Yeah.
Like what a device would do. It would just come apart. Yeah. Now, in a Mug Time, I think, was it Uhura who was trying to make an announcement about going to Vulcan or something?
Yeah, she was trying to say something, and Spock didn't want to hear it.
And Spock went and started punching on the console, and it folded up like aluminum foil. The same thing, and it's
no
like
glass, no sparks. It's like it was so.
So what is that?
What kind of monitor?
Is that a monitor, or is that like the Nintendo Labo fake version of it?
That was just the store display that they had on his desk. That was
right. That was a Starfleet ship store display model that Spock had in there for decoration, and his room was up back somewhere, and he just said, okay, this is my punching bag. If I ever get in trouble, I'll just punch this thing into a pulp. And it's fake. And that just seemed weird. I know they were trying to exhibit Vulcan strength in that. I know that was...
that whole episode, they kind of really exaggerated how strong he was. Remember, he was breaking metal, like glass everywhere, and when he was fighting and everything, and it's like, jeez.
We talked about that in the Vulcan episode, too.
Yeah. I mean, it was...
Time where all the gongs are breaking and the little sticks and everything.
God almighty.
And then but, I mean, I can sort of see a stick breaking. I mean, it's not like he just crumpled into a little ball and just threw it away.
Yeah.
That control panel, it folds up. I mean, the laptop I'm doing this video on, if I punch it, it's not going to fold into a little ball.
Yeah, jeez.
I mean, I use that term because you would go into Walmart and you see that Nintendo Labo. It's like a video game interface that's made of cardboard.
Yeah.
And I'm just thinking maybe that's what they did with that, like a paper mache control panel, and Spock like. I just find it weird. In the middle of this episode, this strange thing happens. It's like Spock can change the texture of metal with his hands. like, why didn't the glass break out? It's just like, it folds up. But anyway, I found that weirdly funny, and it's not supposed to be at all. But it's just like,
yeah, it does come off kind of funny and weird in a way.
It's like, that panel isn't supposed to fold up like.
Yeah.
I'm gathering it wasn't the same material as that one in Enemy Within was made of.
Yeah, apparently.
Because it's like. Anyway, maybe it's made out of like the same thing this plastic bag is made of, because it goes. But anyway, so that's the feeling of the season. What are your personal favorite episodes of season 2?
Oh, well, my first one was Doomsday Machine. I like that one.
Wasn't that one of the first ones you saw, TOS?
Yeah, well, yeah, because that's when I first started watching Star Trek. That was the episode that was on. I like Mirror Mirror, Journey to Babel, Trouble with Tribbles, and Private Little War, The Ultimate Computer, and by any other name.
Boy, you know what? I really enjoy all those episodes too. Season 2 is just like basically the whole season I really like. I mean, I really don't have any major complaints about it.
Well, I'm just saying as like for me, for the great.
Oh, I know, but I mean it's hard.
Yeah.
Season 2 is like just it's kind of a no skip season. It's not like I don't like that one. I'm gonna skip past it. You know, it's just that all of them to me. That's like a lot of the good ones are from that season. Season
you're right.
was pretty good too, but season 2 is like they click together, everything kind of worked together, and okay. Picking favorite episodes out of that one. There's a few of yours, so I'm not going to cover over this, but a few interesting ones that I found interesting, especially as I got older. One of them was the Changeling, because when I watched it for the first time, I realized this was almost a prototype for the motion picture. This machine creature who would become sentient, trying to find its creator.
That's right.
And putting the ship at risk. And it was an interesting, dramatic take, except there were some improbable elements to it. And we dealt with this the minute we first met each other 20 years ago. That this Constitution Connie-class ship can be hit with the equivalent of 90 photon torpedoes. Now, how many hits did they say?
Well, wait a minute. There was at least 270 photon torpedo equivalent of that ship took, from Nomad. Because they hit it at 3 times before the shields fell. Okay, so each hit was 90 photon torpedoes, so you multiply that.
Right, and he said, how many could they have taken before it overwhelmed the shields?
3, and then the 4th hit would have finished them.
So I guess by the logic, unless the torpedoes were of a different sort of photon torpedo.
Yeah, I guess.
I mean, unless the yield was way smaller. I don't know, but, that's...
you have to consider he had to form the energy to throw at the Enterprise because this thing was too small to carry photon torpedoes. So he had
the size of a torpedo.
Yeah, I mean, the machine had to actually form the energy of a torpedo to throw at it. So to say that they were photon torpedoes might have been a stretch.
Well, unless they were torpedoes that were about that big.
But the first hit they took almost turned the ship upside down and everything.
So that was a bit of a stretch because the minute I first met you and started talking about Star Trek, we were talking about the Changeling, and you said, that seems weird that they would put up that 90 photon torpedo thing.
And there's like if you watch that when they take that first hit, you could see the helm coming off the floor because they're throwing themselves around on the set, and they pushed the helm a little bit. You could see one side of it, the one corner of it, kind of lifting off the floor. So, and I was kind of laughing. So when you watch that, just take notice when everybody's throwing themselves around. Watch
the hard port stuff.
It's like a table. You can see it kind of lifting off the floor, and you look at the floor, and you can see those coming.
Some of that stuff on the bridge wasn't affixed to the floor in any way, was it?
The chairs weren't, for sure.
Because every time on the chairs, you almost see the chairs falling over and everything.
Yeah, everybody's picking them up, or they're, it's like, why would you put a chair that doesn't give any kind of, something to grab onto if you're gonna,
That's why I always felt it was better. They kind of attached the chairs to the seats in TNG.
Yeah.
They kind of attached the chairs to something in the background, so they weren't just flying everywhere,
Yeah, I mean, God, all that debris all over the place.
I just imagine, Picard flying to the head of the bridge every time something happened. It wouldn't be very convincing.
And William Shatner certainly liked to throw himself around on that. I mean, he'd just dive right over the command chair. and Uhura would always go the wrong way, and then, she'd run up and then pose in front of the doorway or something.
She'd almost glamorously falling over. And everybody else be holding on to things and just shaking. That was always the whole thing.
I know.
So there's that mechanic to it, but that was a favorite episode of mine. Now this is maybe an odd one. I didn't mention the first Harry Mudd one because the first Harry Mudd episode wasn't really that much about Mudd.
No, it wasn't.
It was more about these women and what was going on with them.
Yeah.
The next episode had more to do with Mudd directly, and it's one of my favorites called I, Mudd, because you deal with this guy who comes onto the ship somehow, and he's not even a person, he's an android.
Yeah.
An alien android who somehow transfers over with the crew. I take it that the crew transfer process in the 23rd century was a little thin.
Yeah.
Because they let this guy who never spoke and didn't talk about his background just come on the ship.
Yeah, and don't they normally do a physical before you...
Right, I mean, it's like these and he's an android, and he forces them to go to this planet where Mudd is ruling over these numbered androids.
Yeah.
And they're from another planet where androids are very common, and they're trying to learn about humanity. And Mud basically becomes this example of a human failure. It's not quite a full comedy as Trouble with Tribbles was, but it's certainly a lighter-hearted thing in a lot of ways because, the androids do present a peril to the humans because they're trying to basically use Harry Mudd to take the ship over. Yeah. But Harry's a problem of the villain.
I think it was fun watching the crew kind of act illogically towards the end.
Yes, because there's that infamous scene where they're all dancing around and stuff.
Yeah. And, that would have been a scene, that Shatner really could have gone over camp with, with that, but he didn't. He didn't do it. He didn't do it. So he actually acted well doing that.
Because he's presiding over everybody, ding, 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 the dancing they're doing. And they're just doing their nonsense out there, but deliberately so.
Yeah.
And, of course, to me, it's always good seeing Bones and Scotty playing the quietest song on the smallest violin there.
Yeah. And even seeing Spock actually doing something, being illogical was kind of fun.
Spock said that weird thing to those androids where he said, "I love you, but I hate you."
Yeah.
Identical to Alice, whoever it is. That's why I hate you, because you're identical. It took me a little while to realize how illogical that was, because most people dislike somebody because they're different.
Yeah.
And he's like, "I don't like you because you're identical." Yeah. And like, dee, 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 Norman coordinate, ooh,
Yeah.
They always get a broken neck or something when they pop it like,
yeah.
Dog angle going. But, and of course, Mudd customized these androids to be like go-go geishas.
Yeah, I mean, he likes all the girls.
And like 3 or 4 male androids to be his minions, basically.
Yeah.
They're just kind of his little service people or whatever.
In a way, though, I mean, he was kind of right. I mean, they would have the equal capacity, both the female android or the male androids. They're androids, so they'd have the same abilities. So what difference does it make if they're male or female? I mean, it's just
in Mudd's world, he just finds the females more alluring.
Yeah, that's a guy's take on it,
Even though he had his heckling ex-wife built, and then controlled him and built 500 of them to the end of eternity and leave him in that condition. So we're supposed to, because since we never saw Mudd again outside the animated show, which is not going to be here, that's the end of live action Mudd as far as we know.
Yeah.
So bye-bye. So there was plans for Harry Mudd later, but they never got to it, sadly. Because I always thought that would have been an interesting character to explore in different ways. I don't know how you'd have gotten out of that, but 500 nagging exes.
Well, he did show up in the animated series.
That's its own story. We're not covering that as far as I know. That's not TOS.
No, I'm just saying that's, he
was back then, but depending on whether you consider that canon or not.
Yeah, well, I do. I don't know. Just
I do too, but I'm gonna play it safe for this one. But anyway, unless you want to talk about it. But anyway, that can kind of make its own story in itself. Another favorite. Jesus, this is hard because I like so many of them. Interesting one. I mean, it's not one of my major favorites that I find interesting is Assignment Earth. We mentioned Gary 7 before. There are 2 things about that. One theory I came up to, traveling through time, mysterious, carries a little thing. Gary 7 is basically Doctor Who.
And essentially, he does act
he's
like
a mystery character. He's into wearing suits. He has a weird sense of humor. He carries around a little sonic screwdriver. He has a time machine that could essentially be a TARDIS. He travels with a younger female companion.
The thing of it is about that episode is I think his character would have been better without the female companion. It seemed to me like if he worked alone, his character would have been more interesting.
I know.
Like he's like this rogue,
Right. The female companion, though, was there for a reason because Assignment Earth was actually a backdoor pilot for a series Gene Roddenberry wanted to produce that would have been a side thing to Star Trek.
Yeah. But I didn't really care for the female, though. I mean, she seemed annoying and,
that was her whole point. Just be the character that would, the character that Terry Gar usually
I like the cat, and the cat turns into a woman or something.
Oh, you mean Isis?
Yeah. I mean, I like that. I mean,
not that Isis from the 70s, but Isis.
But they could have been his companion right there, just taking the cat. Or that
was a backdoor pilot. Backdoor pilots are usually not, but that never happened because they're spinning off a very unpopular series in the Nielsen. So
really,
now, okay, so it's hard for me to pick favorites from that season because I mean, I could do Patterns of Force, whatever. There's so many episodes in that I find interesting and that I get points from. I could do a whole episode of a podcast on Patterns of Force alone. The controversy, the idea of gleaning the wrong messages from history. That's almost podcast worthy in and of itself. So season 2 is just full of so many great moments. Bread and circuses, this idea of Rome evolving into the 20th century.
Yep.
All these great ideas they brought to this point in season 2.
Yeah.
So, okay. I believe they were going to cancel Star Trek officially at the end of the season, which resulted in the famous letter writing campaign by Joe Trimble.
Yep.
Getting fans to write in to keep the show on for a third year, which is now part of Star Trek history. If I'm to hear it correctly, NBC actually made an announcement on TV that Star Trek would be renewed. If I remember hearing it right, it was right after the Lyndon Johnson speech where he said he wouldn't run for it, even if nominated for president. Yeah. And then the NBC comes on and says, oh, yes, now the president's speech is over, we're going to announce Star Trek has been on another year. Like, stop writing in.
Yeah.
I think it was Dorothy Fontana who said that. Have you seen William Shatner's Star Trek Memories?
I might have. I mean, they did so many specials on Star Trek over
it was one where he was all about TOS and all this stuff we're talking about, basically.
Yeah, okay. I might have seen it, yeah.
So, okay, Star Trek comes back. And as far as we're concerned here, showtime. This is where we get to talk about to begin with. Season 3.
Yeah, and it seemed to me like they were deliberately trying to destroy this series in season 3. They moved it on Friday nights at 10 o'clock at night.
Yeah, the graveyard shift at that time.
Yeah, and it started on September the 20th of '68. And the first episode that they aired was Spock's Brain. It wasn't the first one they made, but that was the first one they aired, and that set basically
Brain. What is Brain?
They set the tone for that whole. Basically, well, there was some episodes, but basically, at the feel of the whole season felt like brain. What's
right. No. Okay, we start out with these.
Yeah.
Basically go-go dancer characters with little bracelets they can press and
I mean they imitated that episode on Wonder Years. I think they imitated that episode.
Yes, because they did because they have this dream sequence where they have the little band thingies. But yeah, I mean by this point they're starting to embrace kind of a certain Z movie aesthetic. Of that time. But season 3 is what we started out wanting to do. Now, here's the thing. When I started watching Star Trek in syndication back in the 1990s, I caught it at Spock's Brain. That's where I caught it. I hadn't seen much of season 3 before. And, I wasn't really, at that age, 10, you're not very critical of things. But if you look at season 1 on through 3, you notice a distinct change 3.
Yeah, I mean, it seemed to me like they they changed the look of the quality of the picture when you're seeing it on the television.
Right. The quality of season 3 is the film doesn't seem as high a quality. It seems a little cheaper film.
Yeah. But on the other hand, though, they had some extra what do they call it? Special effects kind of thing where they were actually using stuff that hadn't been used before on Star Trek. Like when they would just walk in front of the view screen and they could stand in front of the view screen while they were doing things on the view screen where they didn't do that before. And in the previous,
right, they did that in Spock's Brain.
Yeah, they did that in Spock's Brain. That was, so it was kind of like they were showing it off a little bit in that episode because they would show Kirk pacing back and forth in front of the screen while the stars were coming by and stuff. So it was like, that was something new that they added into the we actually saw the front of the bridge, which was something we didn't really get to see much of. It was always like they kept taking the same scene where Sulu turns, and looks back. It was always the same the shot used over and over and over again. But in Spock's Brain, they actually, you could see the front, and there was, it was a whole different dynamic there to that, looking at it from that way.
So and again, I don't remember when it was, but there was a couple of issues in season 3 with Star Trek where they actually reused scenes, flat out reused scenes. One famous one, I think they used it in Spock's Brain, where they make everybody in the crew pass out, and Chapel tries to hold onto a chair and falls down.
Yeah,
they reused that in an episode. I can't remember what they flat out reused that scene.
Yeah, I know him, but I can't think of which one it was either now.
But like I said,
it was that one, Way to Eden. Remember when they was using that sonic thing near the
right? They used that scene with
Yeah.
Chapel falling again.
Yeah, they did it again.
Well, we'll get to Wade Eden a little bit later. So in season 3, we pick favorites here. So we pick the best and the rest, because that's the episode where there start to be some weird moments. But I guess we have to have this conversation now about season 3, the one we've been talking about pretty much the whole 2 weeks.
Well, let me go with the episodes that I liked in that season.
Okay, we'll do that first, because there's a big thing about season 3 we're gonna have to get into that's a major thing throughout it. But we'll get into that after. So
the ones that I liked, with Paradise Syndrome, I like that one.
Yeah, we just mentioned it with Miramani.
Yep. Spectre of the Gun, I like that one.
I just watched that. That was a good one.
Yeah. The Tholian Web.
Yeah.
The Empath, which I always kind of liked because it was,
that was a very surreal, claustrophobic kind of story.
Yeah. It had its own music, basically. They even had a whole style of background music that went with that episode. They didn't really play much after that, but then Let That Be Your Last Battlefield, that was another one I liked.
Yeah, that's probably my favorites in the whole season, because it's basically there are these people that kind of like moon pies, more or less. They have these two sides to their faces, one black, one white. They're kind of like Harlequin, yin and yang. Yin and yang is the word.
Yeah.
And their main beef is that they have this bigotry between them, all over which side is black and which side is white.
Yeah.
So, and it basically deals with the idea of racism very overtly. Fran Gorshin is in it as a character that you really don't want to like.
Yeah.
Really don't want to like this guy. And in the end, they find out their planet's been destroyed by bigotry, and they just get left there. Again, it's another episode that doesn't have a happy ending, because they're done.
Yeah.
Like I said, let's be your last battlefield. They have nothing left.
Yeah.
They
kind of repeated that in a Star Trek Enterprise episode where they met these religious people, and they.
Oh yes. That's a favorite of mine in Enterprise too, where they kind of they find out that their planet's been decimated because of their religious issues.
Yeah.
So they revisited that in Enterprise.
Some similarity with that, yeah.
So, but that.
Another episode was All Our Yesterdays. I like that, about time travel and stuff. And
yes, because that's another episode where Spock, they go back in time through this thing where you have to be prepared somehow.
Yeah.
Kirk goes to this medieval time on this, what was the name of that planet? Sarpedian, was it?
Yeah, it was like, going back to the Pilgrim days almost, or something.
Yeah, it was like a Renaissance kind of environment. And it's branded a witch.
Yeah.
And gets thrown in a prison and meets up with another guy that was sent back, but he was prepared for whatever reason. And then when Spock goes back in time to this kind of glaciated thing, he meets up with a woman who was sent back there, apparently in another point in this planet's history.
Yeah.
I'm just guessing, because the way she described some dictator sent her back.
Yeah.
So the Tavakron might have been a century old on that planet for all I know. I don't know.
Yeah.
Or maybe that dictator was really recent. You remember that? She was saying some dictator sent her back.
Yeah, she mentioned something. I don't know. She might have been sent back at an earlier time.
That's what I'm saying. I mean,
yeah.
How old was that Tavakron? I mean,
well, the Tavakron was being used like a library piece of library equipment. So it might have been like quite a ways before that.
So she might have been sent back a century or so before that, for all we know.
Yeah, I mean, they were traveling back just for entertainment. It seemed like, let's go take a look at the past, on this planet. So at that point, time travel was sort of like Doctor Who. It was like, we just go anywhere they want.
Funny how they didn't describe that planet, but I get the impression Sarpedia might have been substantially more advanced than Starfleet, because they could just go through time through these things.
Yeah. All you could do is look at a disc, and there you go. I mean,
someone's about to go Nova, so they may have been a very old planet.
Yeah. Yeah.
Too bad they couldn't explore the technology, but boom, go on the planet.
Yeah.
But anyway, the whole thing was that when Spock went back in time, he wasn't prepared, so he reverted back to primal Vulcan instincts, which were very emotional.
Yeah.
And you had to see the de-evolution of Spock happen.
Yeah.
And him just being emotional, because Vulcans at that time would have been barbarians, as he called it.
Yeah. They were fighting each,
and that's why Spock reverted back to that sort of behavior. Well, of course, Vulcans consider emotions in general a form of barbarism, so I don't know if that counts. But
King of the Dove was another favorite of mine.
yes, with was that with Kor?
King, I think it was King.
Was it King?
Yeah, the Klingon, Commander.
Kor was back, yeah. Kor was way back. Was it?
Yeah.
Because the Klingons, they kind of established this thing where the Klingons all had these K-oriented names.
Yeah. That was.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean it was getting silly at a point where why does the Klingons, because they had their race starts with a K, does that mean all their names have to start with a K? It's like
well, it's like the Vulcan mechanic
any variety
would be that the Vulcans were either S's or T's.
T's, yeah.
Like you would have T'Pol, T'Lar, T'Pau.
Yeah.
Actually, just to let you know about a mock time, I wanted to go back. There was actually a band in the 1980s who called themselves T'Pau.
I remember that, yeah.
Yeah, they were one-hit wonder as it turned out, but then again, there's also a band called Spock's Beard. So, yeah. I mean, Star Trek has influenced a lot of things in culture. I'm just saying.
Oh, yeah.
Especially TOS. I mean, Spock's Beard, T'Pau. I mean, how many people are going to get that T'Pau reference? That's kind of...
Yeah.
I mean, that's an obscure reference within Star Trek, but I guess that's what, But anyway, I just thought I mentioned that. Any more favorite episodes of yours? Because I wanted to go into...
That was the only ones.
All right, favorite episodes of me. One I like in that season, although it's a little bit strange toward the end of it, is because it asks an interesting philosophical question, which I always like, is in there truth no beauty? That features, of course, Diane Mulder, who was in another Star Trek episode the previous year, Return to Tomorrow, who went on to play in Next Generation as the season-long Dr. Pulaski, the only main sort of character to be put on for one season and only last one season. So, I mean, one season not being killed off toward the end of another, but, yeah, I'm talking about Tasha Yar. But, the point is that, so yeah, I like that because, it kind of points to the fact that superficiality may still exist in the future, because this alien is apparently considered hideous and drives people insane when they see it, except this character who's blind and so on and so forth. Another episode that I like during this season, even though the character is, I would say, deliberately irritating, is Elan of Troyos, because in that episode we get to see a Klingon ship for the first time, I believe.
That's right, yeah.
And like I said, I wasn't sure if this Elan had learned any lessons about, because in the beginning she was an absolute spoiled, obnoxious brat to the highest degree.
She was a horror to the crew. I mean, just
right. Right, and then not only that, I remember one scene in that episode that always struck me where she got Scotty's ire up.
Oh yeah,
because she was saying that, we are into what defends the ship, what drives it. Engines are for menials.
Yeah.
And like, without engines, the ship, he's all. But I mean, just to think of this woman who knows exactly how to press everybody's button on the ship.
Yeah.
And goes about doing it.
Yeah, she's just argumentative by nature. I mean, she's
right. And even Kirk, I mean, like I said, spoiled brat to the highest degree. And then Kirk comes in there, who's usually, pretty cool, and he's in there having to almost condescend to her to get her attention. And she has a mechanic where her tears can make everybody do her bidding. So we don't know in the end if the reason why she's so compliant with Kirk in the end is because she thinks she has him under her thumb, or because she's actually understood there's more beyond her self-centered world or whatever. I don't. It leaves you open-ended, but it's an interesting, almost I would almost say a Pygmalion type sketch of a character. Although redemption, I don't know that but it's interesting to see a Klingon ship. I just think that and to present this character that is just, doesn't start out at all likable.
Yeah.
And having to find something close to redemption there. Another one I find interesting, just as a character sketch, I don't know if Kirk fell in love per se, but it was Requiem for Methuselah. I hadn't seen that for years, where there's this man who apparently has bought this planet, and he is, it's a bit of an absurdist plot because he's this guy who had been born on Earth, but was immortal somehow, at least on Earth. and had existed as many historical characters over the years.
Hmm.
And he built this series of robots, one of whom Kirk seemed to be falling in love with. But this character who was calling himself Flint became very jealous, and it was just this interesting kind of character play that this guy apparently had, been on Earth and been all these different characters. And
yeah, I mean, I think what he was doing is he was trying to use Kirk to get the girl there, to the android, to experience emotion, and then he would figure, okay, now he's, that's what he was doing, I think, because when they first meet her, she's really kind of, blank, and she's not got, much feeling or anything like that. But he remember how he was watching the two of them on a view screen somewhere in the compound or whatever.
Right, and he thought that the android would become closer to him, but the android became closer to Kirk.
Yeah, but I think he wanted the intermingling between Kirk and her to happen, so that would bring out any emotion that she might have had.
Right, but then he got jealous.
More human. Yeah, but it turned on him in the only way he didn't expect.
And so
and I should say that this guy Flint looked a lot like my history teacher in high school. I mean, I spit an image, I'll tell you.
Daly was the actor's name.
Yeah. He looked just like him. I swear to God. I mean, I ain't making this up. This guy looked just like him.
Well, if Star Trek is our future, maybe your teacher was Flint.
Yeah, maybe it was him.
Maybe that was one of his identities he kept before he left the Earth, and maybe.
Yeah. And it's funny. And it's funny that the class he was teaching was history, and that's what this guy was all about.
Maybe that guy was Flint. I don't.
Yeah, I mean, I can't believe it. I mean, even my friend said, "Hey, look, that's Flint." It's like, I said, "Geez, that is him." I mean, God Almighty, he looked just like him.
Yeah, I'm just trying to get this picture in my head. Have you seen that episode by the time you had him?
Yes, I was watching Star Trek at that time. And,
I can see it now. Oh my God, my history teacher's Flint. This is weird.
Yeah. I mean, God, he had the white hair and all that.
Was it combed that way and everything? Kind of.
Yeah, it cut exactly the same. He even had the same facial features, like
Weird.
I can't.
Star Trek character as a history teacher.
I got to bring my yearbook over one time and show you this guy, a picture of this guy. You're going to see it.
You mentioned that to me earlier, that when I was talking about that episode. Yeah, I think I look just like Flint, who's my history teacher.
Yeah.
And he was a history teacher, and this guy was living all these lives on Earth. So
yeah,
fan fiction time,
Yeah.
Anyway, so there, we have those little moments in life, don't we?
Yeah, we run into this thing. Yeah.
Okay. Now do we need to have that conversation, because we've talked about the best, but the reason I mention this next part is because it's just hard to get away in this season without dealing with what I call the William Shatner effect. Now, we've alluded to this a lot we've talked a lot about it lately, and this is something that I'm sure that there's a whole culture out there of Shatner impersonation.
Oh, yeah.
Going back to Kevin Pollak in the 1980s and extending into just pop culture now. I mean, you mentioned the Wonder Years with Fred Savage. He even did that whole Shatner being shot by a phaser thing.
Yeah.
Which is the beginning of this season, where he doesn't just fall down, he goes through pantomime.
Yeah, these contortions, before he actually
and all this stuff that he does. I don't know what he does. It's hard to do it on this little screen, but this do that, and he'd always be like, oh, and all this intensity, whatever. But we talked about season 1 and 2, where Kirk, as played by Shatner, seemed kind of cool and in control and kind of the guy in charge. That's how you always saw him. Season 3 introduced
I call it the bipolar effect.
I guess you could call it that. Just this very strange acting Kirk. Did you get any information on the origin point of approximately why this happened, or was this just something?
I really tried. I tried to dig into like the directors and stuff, but a lot of the directors that filmed episodes where he was acting weird like that, they did some good episodes in previous seasons. So I'm thinking that, maybe the scripts were left open for interpretation, And I mean, even though the directors were doing their jobs and stuff like that, you know, I think they just kind of left it up to Shatner to kind of, you know, translate it to the screen in a way, you know, that it just, I can't understand why they let this stuff go through like that, because it really didn't make him more appealing in the way he's acting. You know what I'm saying? It was just, you know, it was not the best season for William Shatner to act in. The other actors were fine. They still did their normal acting jobs and like they did in the previous seasons. But he was the only one, I think, that really.
There were a few odd moments, because we mentioned this before in Tholian Death, where Uhura, who was always the epitome of mild-mannered.
Yeah.
I wouldn't say overacted generally, but overacted for the scene.
Yeah.
Still, just not quite her character. When she finds that Kirk, who they think is dead, is actually just floating around on the ship in interface space.
Yeah.
And she basically just breaks down.
Yeah.
Which is not in Uhura's nature.
Yeah.
But I just found that a little weird, because she was not the source of this oddness this particular season.
Yeah.
This episode, this season is also famous, and this has been debated recently due to a Sammy Davis special that aired around the same time. I haven't cracked the dates. For one of TV's at this point's first interracial kisses, and that is Plato's Stepchildren.
Yeah.
Okay. This is an episode that, how should I put this? This could have been one of my favorites of the seasons, if. Okay. Where do I start with this if?
There's a lot of if.
The basic plot line is these telekinetic aliens who get sick very easily, and they need a doctor on their planet, and they're kind of amoral and whatever. Kind of like the fall of Rome, I guess you could say. That way. Yet, they use their telekinetic powers in a way that's very odd. You have these very old aliens who have said they're, 900, 800 years old.
Yeah, they've been there for a long time, yeah.
Okay, and they're bored. But they have a whole history and a literary tradition. They can use their powers to make the crew on the Enterprise do anything they want.
Yeah.
Gladiatorial fights, whatever. Instead, what we get is Captain Kirk and Mr. Spock with little crown thorns on their head, tap dancing around, singing about Tweedledee and Tweedledum. No, you can go to YouTube and find clips of this, I suppose. This is what they did. And the whole idea is that there's this, it was a mid-dwarf short. There was some reason why he was short, some deficiency, I forget what it was, that made him unable to have their telekinetic powers, and they kind of use him as a court jester.
Yeah.
And
everywhere.
Now, that's a character that I thought could have been played out to make the episode better. Like this oppressed character. And what they do bring up a little bit, but what they do is they end up using the character for some very strange purposes. For example, and this is, I'm going to bring this up because we cover this a lot. I think we actually mentioned this in another previous podcast before. There's a scene where, I watched it the other day, where they actually have him riding around on Kirk's back while he's essentially playing horsey. Okay, and I mean, we can use this to sum up the whole third season. Xander crying on the set, going, and then I didn't realize this head of this whole thing, this planet, what was his name, Parman, is looking at Bones and saying, "How can you let this happen?" Yeah. And Bones is like, eyebrow, and I'm thinking, was that scripted? You know, I mean, how could you let this happen? Really? How could you let this happen? This is Star Trek, and you reduce the series to what? I mean, like you said, you mentioned Batman.
I mean, Batman was running at the same time, and Camp was the thing that kept that.
You mentioned this before we got into the podcast. You mentioned the Batman thing, so I just wanted to bring that into this at this point, because this is where we could explain some of this aberrance.
Yeah.
So let's have the Batman conversation about this thing. I know you don't want to mention other TV shows, but it existed, so So you mentioned the Batman.
But it does have an odd kind of connection in a way, because both these shows went for 3 years, and they started at the same time and ended at the same time, and for the same reason, low ratings, and it's odd that what worked in one wasn't working in the other. I don't get it.
Yeah, I mean, the idea that Batman seemed to need more dramatic tension, where Star Trek actually needed less camp, and they weren't quite getting it right.
Yeah.
So I mean, Star Trek was getting all the camp, and Batman was going another way. So it was just.
The thing about that whole episode is, if they'd have handed me that script, I'd have shredded all but one page.
I would have started from the beginning and then wrote a whole different story.
Yeah, you have the right idea. They're going to go on this planet, meet these people, and they're going to, you're going to have powers. Everything after that, throw that right in the garbage.
Right. Like I said, I certainly wouldn't have had. I wouldn't have had that in there.
Yeah.
And we can also do without. We've also done without Tweedledee, Tweedledum, whatever that was. And then for some reason they made Spock sing a whole song.
Yeah.
Oh, and the tap dancing. I forgot about that. The little tap dancing around Kirk's head. Like I said, these are 900-year-old beings with huge literary access, and they're playing little kids' games.
Yeah. I mean, they had the power. They were already endangering the ship. They were pulling it and everything. Remember, they were trying to bring it to the surface, and they had all this power to make Kirk do whatever the heck they wanted. They didn't have to go through all that. I mean, they knew that his weakness was, his responsibility to his crew. He wouldn't leave bones behind. So why did they go to the stupid extreme of playing footsie here with these people and acting like kids in a playground? I mean, it's like, it doesn't even add up. I mean,
I don't know who the writers are to those. They don't have Wikipedia pages per se. I looked them up, and one of the guys didn't seem to write anything else again. I would love to see an original script to that story.
Yeah.
Like, is there a part where it says, that character, Alexander, he gets on Kirk's back. Kirk plays horsey. Kirk neighs. Is that going to be the script? Or did Shatner...
How sophisticated and talented did you have to be as a writer to spell that out?
Do whatever you want.
God. All the years in college and learning how to write.
Right, and then just the end of that episode, where that's the scene. I'm sorry, the scene, not the episode. Yeah. Where he's like, "How could you let this happen?" I'm saying, I don't know. Really, I mean, and they go to a commercial in that.
Yeah, that was the saving grace. It's like, they go to
a commercial. Like,
yeah. I mean, get that off the air, will you please? I mean, let's go to a Cheerios commercial or something. Just get this away from me.
Being messed up off the screen.
Yeah, I mean, God, It was horrible.
So, like I said, and I think you're right. I think a lot of people with all this stuff that Shatner does comes from the season, because there was an episode I wanted to mention as one of my favorites, but again, this what do you call it? The Shatner bipolar effect messes it up.
Yeah. He goes to an extreme and then he's like subdued. No, extreme. It's like
there's an episode called "And the Children Shall Lead," which is actually a very good psychological story until these children who have this power by this malevolent entity to go like this and make people do stuff. Right. I always found that a little bit of a weird. I mean, can you imagine if he was like that? I mean, I'm gonna put you into a 21st century court after I. Anyway, so the thing in that episode is that they're trying to give them the idea they're trying to put their worst fears ahead of them. Uhura apparently fears being old and disease, and she's all upset, and Sulu thinks that for some reason Knives are coming at the ship, and he's like, "Don't move the controls. You see what's coming out."
I mean, come on. I mean, if even I would fall for that. I mean, no matter how much delirium.
Starfleet training, thinking really Knives coming at them.
Yeah, you see silverware coming towards the ship, right? That's normal, right? I mean, I would have been
like, Captain, what did they put in my coffee this morning? Really?
Yeah.
But not like, "Turn the controls."
Kirk said it. Well, just ignore what you think you see on the screen and plot a course back. You know what? What harm would there have been just to,
Sulu, I mean, even though he's a human, he must be logical enough to understand there would be no knives flying through space.
Yeah, really. I mean, geez.
I mean, it's an illusion created by a child.
Yeah.
I mean, really. I mean, those influence, created by a child going, So, but, like I said, it's a good psychological study, except the mechanics of it. And then we have Shatner. Now, what is his demon? Apparently acting. So maybe that's what it is. Like, okay, we'll just destroy his ability to act in this episode.
Yeah.
And that'll be his, I can't act anymore. I'm a bad actor now. That's basically what happens to him in that episode. So that kind of spoils what should. Well, of course, they redeem it in the end with this really dramatic scene where they get the kids to actually experience their real emotions and everything.
I gotta ask you though, Andre. I gotta ask you this. I mean, they were controlling everybody on the bridge. They were controlling Spock, but what was his fear that they were using to control him?
The weird thing about Spock is that they kind of made Spock oblivious.
Yeah, he was like he was fighting to touch a control or something, but
Spock was like, and then he's like, "Oh, why are you bothering Starfleet? Everything's perfectly under control."
Yeah. So what was the fear factor in
he's a Vulcan. Because he's a Vulcan, maybe they did the other. Maybe they figured, okay, Spock would normally be noticing something was kind of wrong, so maybe they just created this illusion that the bridge was all a-okay.
It doesn't seem like something you'd be afraid of, right? If you're a first officer of a ship, you want everything to be a-okay.
We have to have Leonard Nimoy being a straight man to what Shatner's going to do at the end of this episode.
Well, notice how quick he took him off the bridge when he started acting like that. I mean, he just grabbed him by the arm and pulled him into the turbo lift, like. Yeah,
that was like, Bill, shut up. You seen the little Batman meme?
No.
Batman slaps Robin. They put little captions in it.
No, I haven't seen that. No.
That was almost like how he was with or like Cher and Moonstruck. Snap out of it, Jim. Yeah. I mean, because first of all, they were supposed to have demons, and he's saying he's losing command, but all I see is him losing his acting ability for like the next 10 minutes. So again, Shatner kind of takes the credibility away from that scene because he's just doing Shatner stuff.
I mean, my God.
Happens every time he gets into this in this scene.
Everybody else was, playing it pretty straight, playing.
Except I have a hard time buying Sulu would ever be afraid of knives coming at him. Although he's playing it convincingly if he's afraid.
Yeah, I mean, I can't
imagine why Sulu would be afraid of fake knives coming at him.
I mean, why did he pick knives? Why didn't he go just pick rocks, like asteroids, when he's trying not to...
Right, that would be something you'd be more afraid of, like an asteroid shower coming toward him. But he's not. He's just... I mean... Be afraid of them. Like, I know there wouldn't be no knives flying through space.
I mean, that just, didn't add up.
But like I said, I guess, I don't know, maybe it was primal fears they had, and they were just... Uhura's I get because apparently she feared aging, I guess.
Yeah, we all fear aging.
So I guess that was her big demon. Like I said, Spock was more like thought everything was under control. He didn't seem, like you said, fearful at all.
I just never got that part. Like, what's his fear? I mean, because everybody else, we saw their fear, but we didn't really actually see what Spock was seeing.
Yeah, they acted like Spock just didn't see anything wrong. Like, everything's under control. There's no need.
Yeah. So he wants to be afraid of that, I guess. I don't know.
I can't imagine a Vulcan being afraid of control.
Yeah.
I thought Vulcans were all about control. Unless Vulcans couldn't be tapped in a fearful way, so they had to kind of make Spock think everything was perfectly ordered. I think probably he just saw the bridge crew in their normal places doing normal stuff. He probably didn't see what was happening around him. I mean, I'm sure he saw Kirk. I'm sure he saw...
Yeah, because he quickly got him off the set there when he...
Because, like I said, that that's one of those moments. Like that would have been on my thing if it wasn't for Shatner's moment in that. So, okay, back to the episodes. This is not really a bad or a good one, but just one of those season 3 weird moments. And there's a lot. Where was this one? We alluded to it earlier. The Way to Eden. The songs. And this was the late, I believe, Charles Napier. If you look at his resume, he's a pretty convincing character actor, usually playing very high authority general type figures.
And very good good roles in his career. I mean, my God, yeah.
Still, whenever I see this guy, I'm gonna think, stiff man putting my mind. I mean, it's unbelievable what they. I mean, I get it that they're trying to do. Didn't I see? I'm trying to think who wrote that. Okay. Wait a minute. I'm starting to see a pattern developing here. Oh my gosh. David Alexander, a man who has no Wikipedia page. He wrote Plato's Step. No, wait a minute. He didn't write. I'm trying to see. He directed Plato's Stepchildren. He directed The Way to Eden.
Well, there you go.
He has a Wikipedia page, so he's like a no-name guy. So
yeah.
I'd love to talk to this guy. You know.
Yeah. Get him on our
show. I'd love to have what's going on, because I guess it's supposed to be an allegory on the counterculture, kinda, except not at all.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I mean, this guy that they were following,
he was the son of an ambassador or something.
Yeah, I mean, I never got the why why these people were following him so much. I mean, because he didn't.
You mean the Dr. Severin?
Yeah, I mean, they were looking for Eden, and in his mind, he thinks it was in the Romulan space somewhere.
Yeah, and there was a strange little plot line.
Yeah,
he had this Streptococcus novi, which was some sort of superbug caused by technology.
Yeah, I mean, that didn't make any sense.
Right, and then all of a sudden, he starts talking about it rationally, but for some reason, Spock thinks that makes him insane. I don't know if you picked that up, too. I mean, he's not explaining it in any rational way, but Spock is like, how could technology make somebody sick? That means insanity, you know? And it's like, he's actually explaining it pretty rationally. But we don't know what this thing is. It's never explained. And we don't know why these guys are following him, because he's just basically Cybok from Star Trek 3 looking for some mythical world.
Yeah. We get to see Spock, playing his harp there, with the band there. And that was...
Oh, yes, the Grateful Vulcan routine there.
Yeah.
That's what I call it, like, do. Yeah. I always thought that was really... I was like, okay. Spock's in the groove. That's cool.
Yeah.
The British dancing around. I'm like, okay.
Yeah.
We have a little
and even in that, I mean, Leonard Nimoy still held on to that character, even in that scene.
Basically, it's Trek stock.
Yeah.
That's what that is. It's Trek stock, only with really bad songs.
Yeah.
I like the instrumental, though. It was kind of cool because no one was singing.
Yeah, it was
because when they start singing, it's like nobody thought what they were singing, because they're sitting there singing, hey, out. I can't see somebody in the Enterprise with a little lighter like, oh, sick lyrics. I can't see that.
Oh,
brother, hey, out there, I see you. The songs, I just, I sometimes those get stuck in my head when I'm feeling ridiculous. I see you.
Yeah, the music on Star Trek, I mean, it just never seems to be right.
Well, that one was really out there. I mean, they weren't even caring anymore what they were writing. It wasn't, maybe they didn't have permission to cover Beatles songs or anything well written. They were just like, let's just make up stuff that sounds like we think that sounds.
Yeah.
I don't think the people who wrote that stuff were people who were young then, let's put it that way.
Yeah.
I think it was like middle-aged people in the 60s writing what they thought young people were into.
Yeah.
So you could just tell it was not. So, but like I said, when I found out who Charles Napier was and what he had done later, I'm like, that was a starting point for him. Now, whenever I see him, I'm going to think of him looking at Spock playing that harp like, oh, that's now. That's real now.
It's real now.
I'm like, who wrote this? So The Way to Eden is just like, it's not bad or terrible, or good or terrible. It's just odd.
Yeah.
It's just an odd episode with odd things, odd songs, odd sequencing. The crew acting in a way I could never. I mean, Sulu's sitting there like tapping on his little panel. I mean, I can't see this. It's like Trek stock. This is just a weird. I can't see this.
Yeah, I mean,
it doesn't come together.
I remember one morning I was watching it, that episode, and my father was in the kitchen drinking coffee and reading the newspaper, and he says, "Jeff, shut that off and go outside and play." I mean, that was about as much of that music as he could stand, you know.
Was that the part where they were like, "I see you"?
Yeah. I mean, that's like, you know, get out of the house and go outside and play, will you? Just turn that.
Yeah, and I should mention there's another mechanic in that Star Trek Remastered took care of. The ship they all were rescued from was a really badly redressed Stolian ship originally.
Yeah.
They just slapped some really cheap-looking warp nacelles on. I think that's what they were supposed to be.
Yeah, something like that. Yeah.
But later they developed another ship. Oh, speaking of ships, we have to go back to Spock's brain a little bit. Supposedly, they have this ion ship that's supposedly more advanced than anything Starfleet has, and Scotty's drooling over it. And the ship is like a silver Christmas tree.
Yeah, it looks like
a Buck Rogers ship almost.
It looks like Duck Dodgers.
It does look like Duck Dodgers.
And Scotty said, "Oh, isn't she a beaut? You know, she got a thing or two." And I'm thinking, this is like, you know, Duck Dodgers in space. I mean, it's like
Daffy Duck up there, some Warner Brothers cartoon.
Yeah, I mean, my God, it was so primitive looking. It looked just like a plain old rock.
You can see almost that this was where the show was kind of cheaping out at that point. And
I mean, at least they tried to make a spaceship instead of a dot. You know. Like
they tried to make. I can't imagine Scott drooling over that.
Yeah, but you know, like you were showing me how to use clay to make spaceships. All they had to do was go to a store, get some clay, you know, form a spaceship. I mean, like that, and make it nice and. You know, harden it up, and that would have been.
Trek Remastered, why they didn't make that ship look way better than it did.
Yeah, I don't get it.
I mean, if they had a ship that was sort of like, remember that time ship they had in Voyager?
Oh, okay, yeah.
The Relativity.
Yeah.
If they made a ship that looked sort of like that was sort of, or like Species 8472, those bio ships.
Yeah.
If they made a ship that looked like a cross between those, that would have been kind of cool and unique. Or the Crinum time ship in Voyager, that one that the decapitated Voyager smashed into and changed the timeline back.
Yeah.
That would have been cool. I know they didn't have technology then, but
I think what they wanted to do is they wanted it to look better, but not like out of sync with the times. You know what I'm saying?
The only problem is it didn't, like you said, it didn't quite look.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was a spaceship though. I mean, granted, it wasn't the Dot Klingon ship they used in season 2. Right?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, that was ridiculous.
That's why some remastered had to happen, I suppose, to add real ships in there where they had dots.
Yeah, and you know, I'm glad that they remastered what they remastered. Okay, they didn't go overboard and crazy with it like George Lucas did with Star Wars.
And like they were gonna do with that bridge. You showed me that picture.
Yeah.
It was a neat idea that they could actually do that, but that would have been the right look.
Yeah, it wouldn't have looked right. But yeah, I mean, I'm glad that they remastered it the way they did and all that. You know, they kind of filled in some gaps and things like that. You know, give us some angles to look at.
Another episode that I actually don't dislike, but it's a really odd episode, is A Savage Curtain, because the main protagonist in that was like a big rock
Uncle Lava
transformer looking thing.
Yeah.
And it was creating, or other rock creatures imitating him, all these people from different planets. Abraham Lincoln, who was trying desperately to convince Kirk he was the real guy, yet he appears on a chair floating out in space. And supposed to believe he's really Lincoln.
Yeah.
and you know, Kirk is like, well, I don't believe for a minute it's Lincoln. Like he was somehow convinced. Like he just materializes in space on a chair, and you doubt.
Yeah, when they beamed him on board, why wasn't he sitting in his chair in the transporter room when it is?
You know, materializing in space and that.
Yeah,
I mean, even you and I, we're not. We seem to say, you know, go back to whatever planet you came from. Don't stop pretending to be Lincoln. Go away. You've got to be in a chair in space.
They always had some weird encounters on, like the hand. Remember the hand reaching up to try to catch.
Well, they were exploring Strange New Worlds, so I guess that's Strange New Worlds.
Yeah, I mean,
Strange New Worlds don't include Lincoln materializing in a chair in the middle of the.
Yeah.
I always thought that scene really should be floats up there and just materializes, like. And then Kirk's like, well, I don't for a minute believe it's Lincoln. Like, you act like you're almost convinced.
Yeah.
In a way, it's like there's no convincing. He's obviously not Lincoln. Abraham Lincoln is not this giant space creature that materializes.
Yeah, you don't fly through space in a wheelchair or something. I mean,
right?
God Almighty!
You know, I mean, we have Lincoln Vampire Hunter, but that's an abstraction. This was a way abstraction.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, at least the Vampire Hunter can exist on Earth. This is like this is like Space
I mean,
Lincoln.
why couldn't he have just like appeared on the bridge, like Trelane did?
That space
I mean,
chair.
that would have made more sense than having him flying through space in a
Because it suspends disbelief. It's like if he
Yeah.
just appeared on the ship, or was on the planet and contacted them.
Yeah.
Like he was on the planet and he was like in a chair on the planet.
Yeah.
It would have been like, okay, well, maybe there was something that happened that brought him here. But materializing out in space like that,
yeah,
that should have been 5 minutes right there. Like, okay, we're going to go on another mission. Bye.
Yeah. Yeah.
But no, it's like, well, we have to accord him presidential honors. He's clearly not Lincoln.
Yeah.
He's not going to show up in this red aura thing and just materialize in a chair out in the middle of the cosmos. But that's season 3 for you. Just like the suspend disbelief.
Yeah.
So we already know in the beginning it's definitely not Lincoln.
Yeah.
Because the presentation was just not right.
Yeah.
And then he's trying to convince Kirk I am, and it's like, oh, come on, you materialize in the middle of the view screen. So unless you're trying to convince us Lincoln was actually a space alien all along.
Yeah.
But they didn't go that way, so whatever. It just was a weird thing. But basically that episode was interesting because it got you to meet the Colonel Green character who showed up in Enterprise for the first time. Kahless, who appeared as one of those TOS Klingons, but we later saw as part of Klingon mythology, and Serac.
Yeah.
The father of Vulcan philosophy, as it were.
Yeah.
I was going to mention one other episode. It's not really a good or a bad one. It's just an episode that had a very flawed mechanic. It's actually a good story, but it has some... and I'm talking about the writer. The episode is called The Mark of Gideon, and it was written by Stanley Adams, who was actually a very old producer and director who was Cyrano Jones in The Trouble with Triples.
Mm-hmm.
And who unfortunately died in a very tragic way. He got sick, and he committed euthanasia in the 70s, which was a very sad thing. But The Mark of Gideon has some issues. It's about overpopulation. I think anybody who's seen it already knows that. But for some reason, they feel the need to facilitate this whole story is to beam Kirk into this abandoned replica of the Enterprise. And meet up with this woman he doesn't know who claims to have no memory except of being in an overcrowded auditorium. And then when you hear the story that happened on that planet, you hear how the whole thing didn't even happen.
I mean, where did they put this fake Enterprise? I mean, if the whole planet,
is a massive...
were they all holding it up in the air or something like that?
Right, like, floating ship like that. Oh, that brings me to another episode I'll talk about later that I actually do enjoy from this season, but I'll go into that later. In the air, but that's another plot hole. This episode had massive plot holes.
Yeah,
because the planet is a mass of people, and the people outside, what do they do to say, okay, clear out enough space to build this fake Enterprise?
Yeah,
and then all this kind of clam around the building.
Yeah.
It's a little improbable.
Yeah.
I mean, you said, couldn't they have just beamed Kirk into this big mass of people or something?
Anything but what they went with it. I mean, it seemed like what they were trying to do was they wanted to get some kind of disease that Kirk was cured of and, he still had in his body to introduce into the population so that way it would start killing off people and lowering the population. Now, they've done this story on a movie that they used to play on the Sci-Fi Channel. It was called Zero Population Growth, ZPG. And it was supposed to be like Earth, being overpopulated that way. And they were telling people they couldn't have babies for like a whole generation. And to try to stop the overpopulation. And the reason being is that all the diseases were cured on Earth. There was no cancer. There was no anything. I mean, all the doctors did their jobs, and now they're left with this, daunting situation that, now that people aren't dying, they're living long, and now they're crowding the whole planet. And in that movie, it was done a lot better than the way Star Trek handled it. I think, not just because it was budget-wise. I mean, if you see the movie was kind of very limited on budget, I think, but they handled the story a lot better than they did with Star Trek on that issue there of population. So yeah,
one episode I actually did like this season, I believe was a season. Let me see if I can, because I mean, I think it's the Cloud Miners, and we mentioned Over the Top. It's basically a Class 4 episode. They got this floating city, which they did really well in Star Trek Remastered, by the way.
Yeah, I liked it, yeah.
They did really well in that. And basically, I don't have too much trouble with this episode because it's a Spock story for one thing, for the most part. Any weird mechanic Shatner acting, like with Miri early on, can be justified by a plot point where they're mining this material that its raw state can create ill temper in people. So we can explain Shatner's weird acting with this stuff. So
as he called it, the effects of unbelieved gas.
Is that what he called it in the episode?
Yeah, that's what he called it. Because remember, he was trying to convince the guy on the ran Cloud City there to Placis, that there was a problem with the mining and remember he sealed them in the cave and he collapsed the entrance so they'd have to stay in there, and he says, now we're gonna run an experiment on unbelieved gas. And I was saying, my father always laughed at that because yeah. It's like, what are they going to do? Eat beans and stuff with blazing saddles or something? Unbelieved gas.
That was a script gaffe because I keep thinking of that Doctor Who moment I mentioned in the episode called Web Planet, where they have one of those. It looks like a big lamp, one of those mind reading devices out of the 60s they have.
Yeah.
And the doctor's like, lower that hair dryer or whatever. I mean, I just think that's what I think of when I think of that unbelieved gas thing. So that was a awkward moment in that. Even though it's basically a good episode, I have no problem with that. That was one of my favorites that season. But you can basically call it, effective unbelieved gas. Like, oh, Shatner forgot the name of the gas. Wasn't it Xenite was the name of the mineral?
Yeah, that's what it was.
So basically, he's like, oh, unbelieved gas.
Yeah. And it seems odd to me that they would be using hand tools on this planet to get this element that apparently
this Stratus has this very advanced technology.
Yeah, and on there they have to use like basically shovels and stuff like that to get it out. It's like, well, this is going to take forever to mine this thing. I mean, if you're using that kind of tool, I mean,
yeah, I think they're trying to reinforce the class system thing here. That these people are going to get crappy shovels and stuff, while we live up here in this technologically advanced bliss.
Yeah, but if they need it so bad, why are they giving them such poor? I don't know. I just.
But like I said, it's the absurdity of class war. How we give people crap they don't really.
I think that was more important in the minds of the writer and director that they try to show that. I guess.
Yeah, because it doesn't. I mean, theoretically, the Stratus Dwellers, I think was the name for them.
Yeah, Stratus Dwellers. Yeah.
Who didn't feel the effects of the of this what do they call it?
The unbelieved gas.
Unbelieved gas. Yeah. I don't remember that scene. I have to go back and see that unbelieved gas.
Yeah.
Did Shatner forget his line or something?
That was Shatner's line, yeah.
Do you think he just forgot what he was supposed to say or something, or is that written in the script?
No, I think that was the actual line that he was supposed to say in that, I'm surprised you don't remember that, but yeah.
Well, like I said, I guess I understand the gas being named Xenite. I would never think that he would just not mention it.
Well, he said unbelieved gas because nobody in the cloud thought that was real, that they thought that the people on the surface were just making this up and causing disruptions.
It's a weird thing to say, though.
Yeah, it is. I mean, because, it comes off all wrong, when you hear it that way.
You purpose that in very different ways.
Yeah, I know.
I mean, that could almost be a meme.
Yeah.
Effective unbelieved gas.
Yeah, I mean, you don't even have to put words on it. Just play it as a GIF file with him saying it. It's like.
Yeah, like say, yeah, this happened.
Mm.
But like I said, the inner 13-year-old frat boy in all of us is going to be going on that one. Unbelieved gas. Like I said, that's what I'm gathering is the little joke in that.
Yeah.
It just sounds kooky compared to what's else in the episode. Yeah, but basically that's when okay, we got to get to see the end of season 3 here. I've not wanted to get to this one. This goes from not even bad, not even weird, to just why.
Yeah.
This is an episode that you told me did not even air during the original run. They just wanted to get it off. I believe.
Well, what happened, and I have made it so I won't forget that the night that they were supposed to air it, the news media had interrupted the programming to announce that the president had passed away earlier in that day. Eisenhower. So what happened was they they just cut in on the show like, you know, they usually do when something breaks, you know, and they just cut right in on whatever show you're watching. And I suppose that went on for hours and hours, and they were talking about that. And so basically...
So that episode was supposed to air, but it just didn't.
It didn't. They just preempted it, you know. And so what happened was when they actually put the series on syndication, and it went on Tuesday nights at 7:30, they put that episode at the end of season 3 that they weren't able to see the first time around, so they actually got to see it when they rerun it. So,
okay, and the episode we're talking about is Turnabout Intruder. Now, interestingly enough, this is one of the episodes I really wanted to see in the TOS. And the reason why I did is that, you know, these episode descriptions always make them sound excellent, and they usually are. This one made it sound like something it actually isn't.
Yeah.
It was talking about gender transposition and all this stuff. So you see it set up. And now we're talking about Shatner in season 3. This is the apotheosis of it all. Okay, this is where it just goes into hyperdrive. I mean, we talked about this. There could actually be a bit of a weird unpleasantness about this because we were talking about this. He's supposed to be Janice Lester, this character that he knew. I don't know if they were. Was it clear if they were romantically involved at one point or rivals or what was that relationship they had?
Yeah, I think it was something like, you know, maybe like in his early days, like when he met, you know, Carol Marcus, maybe it was another girl that he met around that time, you know.
Right, and she had this issue, which you explained through something that wasn't quite 100% canon, that Starfleet at that point, or at least his world of Starship captains, as he put it, did not admit women.
Yeah.
I don't know, because she worded it in a strange way. I don't know if that meant him personally or Starfleet. You gave me a possible reason why Starfleet might not have, which wasn't 100% canon, so I don't know if I should even mention that, but a lot of people have accused Star Trek of fomenting sexism with that remark.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's just, if you see where the episode goes, it gets even better. So they transpose. Kirk, in her body, spends most of the episode half-conscious or not being believed. So we get to see, and we see this woman as being resentful and angry and unstable, but really more genuinely so.
Yeah.
When she's in Kirk's body, as played by Shatner, you get a whole different character.
Yeah.
Which results in this, shall we say, utterly unhinged courtroom scene at the end of the show, where he's trying to prove his identity, but does it in a way that's, shall we say, utterly unconvincing. And these characters are trying to believe this guy is Kirk, while he is basically throwing a series of very strange tantrums.
Fits, yeah, he was having fits.
Very strange fits, too.
Yeah.
And so, you know, basically, Scotty and Bones are out in the recess of this trial, talking about how they've seen the captain this way and that way and this way, but they've never seen him hysterical before. Now, we got to go back to the beginning of the season here. They have seen this many times. I mean, unless that wasn't the way it was supposed to be, they've seen all that. So they've never seen his character hysterical? Which also, by the way, is apparently considered a very sexist word. So again, we throw in that mechanic to it. So they go back in, and apparently this Captain Kirk, Janice has been recording what they're saying, and wants them to repeat it. And they're like, yeah, we know what we said. Then we get into, I don't even know what. He's like, this is this bizarre thing, and they're all kind of looking at him like, because he's doing what those children's show lead kids are doing, basically. And he's like into this fist pounding thing, and just this little. Basically, again, Shatner doing what little 5-year-olds do when they want to get candy or a sweet.
Yeah.
It's like, and again, you mentioned this before. Is this the way Shatner or writers felt that women, especially troubled women, behaved?
Yeah.
Again, you can bring in our friend sexism to this, you know?
Yeah. I mean, if they left it up to Shatner to interpret how to react in that scene, and that's what he come up with, You know I mean, I don't know what you would want to imply there with that, but I'm just saying that really, because like you said, the other actress that played her, she wasn't like that. I mean, she was, you could tell her the way she was thinking was a little bit unhinged, but she wasn't having tantrums and stuff like that.
Yeah, I mean, she certainly wasn't.
Yeah.
I mean, that's pure Shatner season 3 stuff, That.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I mean,
That's the way he's been behaving the whole year. Just whatever that is, he was doing it. So, so basically, in the end, even the way she goes back into him, because it's like it looks like a little psychedelic ghosty thing flying around. And then she's like reacting like she's kind of unconscious. And then with Shatner, oh no, it's like, all this pantomime.
Right. It's like, and then you could see the crew looking at him like, okay, what are we supposed to do here?
Right, and then that was after another tantrum because he went on the bridge and he said, set a course to this, and they all me. And they, you obey my orders! You don't obey my orders! He's doing more this weird tantrum-y stuff. And it goes absolutely unhinged. And then when he actually goes back to her own body, again, she exhibits upsetment and disappointment that she couldn't be the captain, but she's not acting like Shatner did.
Yeah, she ain't, trying to, have a hissy fit or something like that.
Acting like that. That's a Shatner.
Yeah.
Being that way. But they try to explain it in the episode in this very bland way that, well, I'm obviously not Captain Kirk, but what makes Captain Kirk special to himself is inhabiting my body.
Yeah.
So I guess what made her special in his body was that wasn't the way she seemed to be in her own body.
Yeah.
That was like that was just like Shatner doing it. I don't know. I mean, it's funny. Did he even get to know her character when she was playing it? Because if somebody else in the situation, they would have.
He had more time with the character than she did, obviously. Because he spent a good portion of the show pretending to be her.
And like I said, she's a totally straight, rational Kirk in her body.
Yeah.
Totally straight and rational. I mean, I don't know who that woman was. I can't remember her name, but I can't imagine her running around.
Yeah.
I mean, she could have hammed it up, but he's just hammed it up even without himself in her body. So it's like, this is just Shatner kind of breaking the fourth wall in this. He's stepping out of character and doing what Shatner wants to do.
Yeah. Yeah.
So this is the way Star Trek kind of comes to an end. And it's not a very auspicious ending. Because then they have this odd line that's kind of creepy in the end. Oh, her life could have been as good as any woman's, if only. So there's that sexism again.
Yeah.
We get this weird, unpleasant sexism. Shatner's acting going into, I don't even know what it went into, just some strange place. And just, I always felt bad that TOS had to end like that.
Yeah.
And you mentioned, we talked about this. If the show had gone into season 4, what would have happened?
It probably would have got more campier because, like I said, I think they were trying to tailor these shows for children more to give them things to watch. I mean, Batman ended that same year that Star Trek did, and at the same time, when NBC heard about that, they wanted to pick up Batman from ABC, and they wanted to do a season 4 with Batman, which tells me that they were thinking of probably doing something like campy TV shows, when they didn't do it with Star Trek, but they wanted to bring Batman onto their network and kind of continue that campiness with that because they knew that it would draw kids to watch it. And I guess it didn't work out because they found out that all the sets on Batman had been destroyed and they didn't want to have to rebuild all those sets. It would cost a lot of money. So they said, well, we'll forget it, then we won't do it. But that seemed to be like the trend at the time is, let's make these shows campy and, entertaining to, younger people. And, so they were kind of abandoning the larger, the more philosophical things, the adult kind of thinking and stuff like that.
And if they're burying them in, and, in Batman, we kind of accepted that silliness and that foolish element as just being, kind of a superhero comic booky way of it.
Yeah. Yeah.
It was like a TV comic book. You know, comic books are usually very fanciful, and it doesn't seem campy in the comic world because it's all written out like a comic, and
Yeah.
you know, they just did it like a comic book take on it. You know, they didn't try to live action it up. They did later, but they were trying to make it like a comic booky thing.
Yeah.
Whereas Star Trek was not a comic book. Star Trek comic books, we'll get into that history another time because there's some stuff going on with TOS that's really interesting. We'll get into that.
Yeah.
These are good blog ideas because, you know, every TOS had a comic book that was going on during it, but it was, speaking of season 3 here, this could get interesting. But anyway, with TOS, this is the general idea of the series. And we have 2 pilots we're going to get into another time because they're kind of their own thing.
Yeah.
I will note one thing. One of the pilots had a Captain Kirk, but it was a James R. Kirk. I'm saying, you know, so it's actually 2 Kirks, I guess.
Yeah. James R.
So, they both played by William Shatner, but one's James R. Kirk, one's James T. Kirk. So
yeah,
we'll get into those later. But anyway, so with the series, I guess we basically come to the conclusion that the William Shatner people imitate from Star Trek largely comes from that last year.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
And that in the end of the day, even in Star Trek's worst moment, which is probably season 3 from what we're getting from this, there was still a little beacon shining out. Like, this was still, there was still potential to either get really bad or go really well. I always kind of hope they went to a third, fourth season, they'd realize the mistake they made and go back to season 2's.
Yeah.
And just have a little elaboration there, you know.
Yeah.
But they didn't. We were supposed to get a 5-year mission. We only got 3.
Mm-hmm.
But Star Trek wasn't over. Of course, we know that. And the TOS universe was far from over.
It had to be put into hibernation so this campy stuff would just fade away.
That
you know?
kind of, you know, I mean, to be honest with you, you know, I've actually heard people say that they think that should be remade in a fan series in a better way.
Mm.
It'll be interesting to see that played straighter.
Yeah.
Although I don't know how you play Spock's brain straighter, but the whole plot of that's absurd. But
that's almost cartoonish, that episode, in my mind. I mean, it just seemed like something you'd see in an animated episode, you know, or something, you know.
And like I said, even those animated episodes, they weren't usually Spock's brain, except some of the, like, we get into that Spock 2 thing. But that was actually a good episode, though. It's just that, you know, just that particular way they dealt with it.
Yeah. I mean, there were some good stories in that.
But it was a cartoon, so if there was any campy moments, you kind of figured it's cartoonish, and that's part of the whole cartoony way. But
just let it slide, yeah.
So basically, would you say that Star Trek, and I know this is a big cliche because you hear it all the time in music and film, the best seasons of a show are always its earliest ones, and it isn't always.
Not from my experience, it hasn't always been.
Yeah, I mean, if you go to Star Trek The Next Generation, you can't certainly say that about that.
No.
Its first season is not its most powerful. I mean, you could debate how well it is, but
largely for Deep Space Nine, I think the first couple of seasons really weren't that good. Yeah.
Voyager had its ups and downs, so TNG, you know, I mean, TOS had its exception but I think, you know, third season could have been made really well if they just stuck to the course.
Yeah.
You know, and they didn't, but the first 2 seasons are probably why the show's remembered. I mean, if they were all the quality of season 3, I think it probably would have stayed there.
You know, the funny thing is, though, is, you know, as we watch these reruns of the TOS on TV, and, you know, we wonder how could they even contemplate trying to cancel it after the first season. You know, I mean, the episodes were, you know, well written, well acted, you know, by everyone. Even William Shatner was actually good acting in those first 2 seasons.
Sure.
And you know, and for the studio or the networks to say, no, we don't want to do this anymore. It's like, well, what the heck is wrong with it? What are you looking for? You know, they played it both ways. In the first season, it was a little subdued and everything. Then they hyped it up a little bit. In season 2, they carried it on. What part of it did they not like?
3.
You know? No, I meant when they wanted, because they
the first 2 years,
Yeah,
I mean, we kind of justified it in a lot of ways, but that was kind of a consequence in a lot of ways of it being cut by budget. Writing staff probably cut down that year, so
I just, you know,
they kind of created their own little problem with that.
Yeah.
But basically, in the end of the day, I think now we know why TOS endured, because maybe that's why we people endure so much, because you know, if the show had been Batman, would you have noticed season 3 all that much? Let's put it that way.
Mm.
I mean, because, you know, we knew what Batman was right from the get-go.
Yeah.
But with Star Trek, the season 3 stuff stood out because we knew what the show could be. We'd seen what it could be.
Yeah.
And I think season 1 and 2 showed you that this didn't have to be, you know, I mean, it's hard to go from something like City on the Edge of Forever or Amok Time to it's hard to go from one thing to the other. And it's a sharp decline too, because I mean, you go right from Assignment Earth, which aside from Improbability, you know, in some ways, was actually not a bad backdoor pilot episode.
Yeah.
Spock's brain.
Yeah.
They get they get a letter writing campaign, and they don't put out the best work in the 3rd season.
No, I mean, but there were some good episodes in that season. It just started off on the wrong foot. You know, it was just, you know, like I said, Spock's brain really kind of summed up the reason why, you know, they decided to yank that show was because people weren't interested in the camp that they were putting into it. You know, I think it was getting silly and, you know, I think there was a lot less.
Yeah, and that whole thing, like you said, let's try to make this Batman money. You know, it just didn't.
Yeah. I mean, and the thing of it is like I said, I think there was a lot of, you know, people just not doing their best work, basically, with the direction, you know, the director and the writers and stuff like that. They were just letting a lot of things slide, and I don't understand why they would feel that way after all that. Like you said, the letter writing campaign that forced them to keep it on. They should have said, "Oh, geez, you know, we really got fans out there. You know, let's put some good episodes on." You know, but they did the exact opposite. They didn't try, you know, and it's like I feel like, well, you know, you kind of betrayed everybody that was trying to keep the show on by giving them this, you know. It's like, you know, I don't know. It's just, you know, it's just very confusing to me why things ended up the way they did with that.
Maybe you're right. Maybe in order to do the season 3 story, we had to explain how it got from where it did to where they got it. And I mean, we gave them plenty of ammunition to cancel that show at the end of the season and say, yeah, we have a reason now.
Yeah.
You know, where they didn't they actually cancel it at the end of season 2 and their letter writing campaign brought it back?
Yeah. Yeah.
But I know it always been in danger of but I didn't realize they actually did cancel it at the end of season 2, but they brought it back by letter writing campaign. And you know, I'm sure there are some out there who just like season 3's with it. Maybe they should have just left it off at season 2 and cancel it.
Yeah. I mean they were going to take it off the air in season 1 at the end of that one, but you know, they didn't need a letter writing campaign. They just came back. I think Gene Roddenberry kind of convinced them to do another season with it, and they did.
And the season 2 one, I guess the ratings weren't very high with that, but the letter writing campaign.
Yeah, proved otherwise. I mean, the reason why the ratings weren't so high is because people were out on the streets protesting for everything that was going on wrong in this country. And, you know, they did like it when they was watching it, but they couldn't be, you know, watching it when they were doing all these other things, and it would be on an odd hour. You know, it's just, you know, there was a lot of bad timing, I guess, that surrounded that whole, you know, the whole thing. You know, it's just, it came on and it was like misstepped every time, you know, when you try to get it into the public. But after they went off the air and they syndicated it, then that got into the right step, because then people were actually at home watching TV and they could see the show, you know, from start to finish. They started to like it, and that's what created that big phenomenon that we got today.
Well, it looks like within the space of almost 2 hours, like this wasn't going to be a short one, we'd actually encapsulated all of TOS. We still got the pilots to work with, but
yeah,
I don't know if you want to work with the pilots as each do one on each one, or just do 2 of them together, because they're both very different. But
yeah,
and the animated series, which I like to consider it canon, but there's always debate over that. But you could kind of put that in there as year 4.
Yeah.
You know, the better one. I like the animated series more consistently than I do 3. Maybe because the cartoon thing, I mean, if they'd done that live action, who knows what it would have been, but
yeah.
You know, but that's TOS. You know, a couple weeks ago we had the 52nd anniversary. We talked about is Star Trek actually needed? We came to a good conclusion about that. And now we've explored TOS pretty thoroughly. And I did want to add this at the end. I want to dedicate this. I know opinions will vary, of course, with you and anybody watching. I wanted to dedicate this to Steward, Captain Foley over at
Trek Yards, yeah.
Yards, and I wanted to do this because it's been clear watching him and Samuel Cockling's over on that channel that he's a big TOS guy. Stuart's a big TOS guy, and I mean, like I said, these are not your opinions, Stuart. I'm just necessarily, you may have very different ideas about what we're saying, but this was our TOS moment, and I want to dedicate this to you because, you know, especially in these days how they're trying to reboot Star Trek and everything, and I don't want to get into that anymore. You know, we got to give the original TOS some love. I think people are going back to that and realizing that, hey, you know, this universe up to Voyager, this is what we want to see. And so, and this is the classic Coke of Star Trek. You know, this is the real thing.
Yeah.
This is the real thing. You know, this isn't Star Trek New Coke or Cherry Coke or Vanilla Coke. This is the real thing.
Yeah.
This is the original stuff. So I remember back in the day, TOS is the new name for it. You used to call it the original series.
Yeah.
You remember that? There was no TOS or TNG. It was the original series.
Yeah.
I mean, before Next Generation, it was just Star Trek. Like I said, that was the classic Star Trek. I think, but didn't they actually call it that for a while? Classic Trek?
Yeah, when they were talking about that series, you know, because at the time, even the movies, I mean, they were fairly new. So they talked classic Trek. They were mentioning the 60s.
So like I said, that this was the real thing. So
yeah,
discuss the real thing, and I at some point now a lot of the other shows went on for 7 years, so it's going to be hard to discuss the Next Generation under like 12 hours because most of them of extraordinarily high quality. I mean, to me, even the very worst of, let me not say that, but I mean, because at least equal to. I mean, TNG never quite, even in its weirdest moments, had it got there.
Yeah.
You know, so, but like I said, I guess maybe standards were higher.
Yeah.
They made some mistakes, of course. I think all the series afterwards made some mistakes, but and there's gonna be character profiles coming up. I'm actually thinking of one very soon because I want to do character profiles on this, because you know what attracts people to Star Trek? Is it all spaceships? Is it all adventure? Or is it characters and their interaction with these things? So Star Trek itself is a character-based thing, and you can introduce new ones, but they have to have some character in the show. So if you have anything more to add, because I was going to wrap this up.
No, I think you wrapped it up pretty good, dude.
So we've got all 3 seasons of TOS, such as it ended up. But, you know, like I said, there was even some light moments in the darkness there, so in the last season. So anyway, hope you enjoyed it, and we'll see you next time on Trek Prime. Long and prosper, everybody.